Welcome to Divisive Issues. The
Hey, you're back, Ryan.
Yeah, I'm back, guys. I'm well rested.
You welcome back to Divisive Issues. The spoiler mill. Whatever.
Spoiler mill.
Whatever.
Yeah. So I'm back. I'm well rested, and I'm ready to force you guys to read dumb shit that I like.
Yeah, we're doing Flashuary.
Yes, because for any true Valentine's Day, we always have to be with the ones we love. So I'm forcing you guys to do a whole month on the Flash.
Oh, I thought because of how someone gets murdered in here, that's the good way to celebrate Valentine's Day. Is the
Well, that too. It could be two things.
Well, this is kind of has a romance subplot going on here to an extent.
Why are we reading this? That's my first question. Like what? Like because you had to sit down and read 9 issues, and I could just not figure out like what was the point of this was.
Okay, so
it
what
seems to me like the pivotal moments of this character, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Not kind of. So what I wanted to do for this block is the thing about the Flash that's so interesting is like he's always been. Just let me get through these couple sentences. He's always been really stupid, in my opinion. Where like the thing that I like about the Flash is I feel like more than most comic book characters, he's always like it kind of embraced that it's like it's silly that this guy runs really fast, and through that he always has more camp than other characters. And I wanted to kind of just do a kind of spotlight on his villains, because even though like because a lot of his stories that I love, some of them are just like, the reason why I mentioned like the campiness is because some of them are just like fun silly stories that don't necessarily work for the show. Like for some reason, multiple Flashes have like had to work for the IRS because they owed back taxes. Don't know why that's a recurring thing, but like just like silly things in ways that I feel like Batman or Superman are like afraid sometimes to lean into it. And so I wanted to kind of focus on some of the more like crucial or pivotal Flash moments through the use of his villains. And the first one, the one that we're going to talk about today, is going to be the only Barry Allen centric episode because I'm a Wally West fan. But I wanted to spotlight the Flash's relationship with his arch rival, the Reverse Flash, Professor Zoom. And originally, I was going to start this episode with his first appearance, but there's already enough stuff in here, and because it's a Silver Age issue, it's like it would be really long to get through. So I jumped ahead to like the mid-70s, and all of these things are going to be written by Cary Bates, who wrote more than half of Barry Allen's run. And it kind of showcases why I don't think Barry works super well, because he both tries to... He's always... like, he was the first Silver Age character, and because of that, a lot of Barry Allen's history is kind of grounded in the Silver Age, that when comics started jumping forward to the Bronze Age and started modernizing a little, like we've talked about Bronze Age before, like when Jon Stewart appears as Green Lantern and these kind of things, the Flash had a really, really hard time catching up. So when his stories start to try to get... yeah. But when his stories start to get a little darker, it's really weird because there's still a bunch of dumb, campy nonsense baked into it.
a giant boomerang plane is coming to
Yes,
take this corpse away.
That's what I wanted to say about Flash. I haven't read that much Flash as I should have, but like watching what little I've read and from watching the show, Flash has a really hard time balancing the dark elements and the campy elements. So sometimes you're like, hey, I'm sitting down for a fun, goofy story, and then it gets unexpectedly dark randomly out of nowhere.
I personally think that Barry struggles with that a lot, and I think the smartest thing DC ever did was kill him and let somebody else take over.
Oh my god, he dies. No.
Yes, he does die.
Remember didn't he show up in 52 or something?
We did, yeah.
Didn't we talk about him dying in Infinite Crisis? Because that happened. Like he shows up, his corpse shows up.
But I feel like he's been alive in like Heroes in Crisis, so I just assume that he's alive
that
even
Barry
if he
Allen?
dies.
So
it's almost everyone in this fucking story's alive by now, I'm pretty sure.
Wally gets killed in Heroes in Crisis.
Yeah.
Barry's the one investigating his death.
I'm going to talk about this more at the end, but the reason why Barry is such an interesting character is because a lot, in like a meta sense, is a lot of times, like Sly and I have talked about on the show about how like legacy characters often divide the fan base, where like you'll always have like Barry Allen fans and Wally West fans, and sometimes it hurts sales because when there's, when Barry's the Flash, Wally fans might be mad about it and so on and so forth. And like the thing with Barry, unlike most comic book deaths, is Barry was dead for like over 20 years. and Wally had a full development and grew from a kid to an adult, and like a Dick Grayson type character that like Dick Grayson never went back to being Robin, right?
More so than most other legacy characters. Wally was like the Flash for most people. Like with Kyle Rayner, there was like some butthurt people because of how it got treated on his departure. But like no one wanted Wally back except for people who were in their 50s, and they ended up writing DC Comics, so they brought Barry back pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. And like unlike like Jean Grey's back, it's been a year or whatever. Like Wally was the Flash for so long, and part of the way that gets complicated is then when they go to do Flash adaptations, like the show in the 90s or the show nowadays, or like it was Wally in the Justice League Unlimited cartoon, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But with the exception of that, most of the time same thing like with the Marvel movies and everything, they always go for the iconic character, which would often, like in the 90s cartoon show, in the 90s live action show, it's Barry, but because Wally was the Flash in the comics, it's adapting a lot of Wally West's stories, which is just like weird, but like they feel like, oh, we have to do the iconic Flash. Even though Barry wasn't the first Flash and he wasn't the Flash at the time, they still like, for some reason, he's the one that everybody
The first
picks.
Flash
And
was
I
the
think
guy with that weird hat, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's the one everyone grew up with. Everyone grew up with. The people who grew up with Jake Garrick are long dead by the time like the modern comics came around. But like a lot of people grew up with Barry, and also speaking of Justice League Unlimited, even though there's an exception to like Wally and Barry, using Barry as the iconic character. That was a good example of why they wanted Barry back, because the creators of the Justice League cartoon resented having to use the modern versions of most of the characters. That's why they used Jon Stewart instead of Kyle Rayner, because they really fucking hated all the new characters pretty much. So like to pretty much stop that friction, I think that's part of the reason why DC eventually in the comics got rid of all the new characters over time.
Yeah. So I wanted to open this first episode with talking about Barry's relationship with the Reverse Flash, like I said, and we're gonna kind of jump around a little bit, and we're gonna cover issues 275 to 277, 281 to 283, and 323 to 325. And we're going to start with issue 275, where it's a masquerade party is on the cover, and there's just like a bunch of DC characters that are actually just guys in costumes. And it's, you are cordially invited to attend the last dance and witness the death of blank. There's a thumb covering the cover.
It's covered with sleeve, by the way, because it shows a guy dressed up as the Golden Age Sandman, which is like a gas mask guy with a gun, shooting what looks like Zorro. So cover makes you think Sandman's killing a guy dressed in a bizarre costume. So I wasn't comparing.
More than it's like it's not even just subtle. Like Flash is like, I think he's really shooting him.
Yeah, which this is not what happens in the story at all.
So I haven't read this story, but I've heard about the story from like DC history. I did not expect this to be the issue that this major event happens, because this cover is not hinted towards that at all in my eyes.
And this is a good example of the Flash's awkward like run into the Bronze Age, where it's like it doesn't seem like this is a serious story that matters.
Yes.
And all of a sudden it just doesn't get undone, and you're like, this is weird. But like we've referenced this in like Identity Crisis references this as a very serious event, and it's very weird. So when I pitched this first episode, I was like, I hope that the boys know that I don't think this is like great.
I always suggest stuff just to get some history, and you guys are always like, obviously this is Sly's idea of a great comic.
Yeah. So like all Flash stories, it opens really stupidly, where the Flash is getting mind controlled by a teenage girl and he's getting drawn to her. Meanwhile, his wife is getting ready while this creepy ass man is staring in the window.
Clive Yorkin is his name.
Yeah.
And
He looks like the human version of Tasmanian Devil from
Yes.
Yeah, he doesn't. He looks so cartoonish and dumb. And this entire time, I'm like, how is this guy a villain? He's a man that was like, he was experimented on to like get rid of his criminal tendencies with electroshock therapy, and he just kind of broke afterwards, and he just became mentally ill. So he just runs around like looking at people, going like, heh, heh, and attacks them. But it's like he is the worst villain like we've read so far. Like,
he has no powers or anything. He's just a crazy guy.
Just a guy.
He's just a mentally ill man that needs treatment and was unfortunately like electroshocked.
Yeah, so this is again, like, I intentionally didn't want to explain anything that was leading up to this issue because it's so funny to me that so Iris, Barry Allen's wife, and also important to note, Barry's like one of the only married superheroes like that was like married for like a long time, like at least in DC. Like I know Marvel has like, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Fantastic, and
But
stuff
even then,
like that. But-
Mr. Fantastic was a huge deal at the time because no one got married until then, pretty much.
Yeah. And like especially when you look at like Silver Age characters like, you know, like Superman and Lois Lane or Hal Jordan and Carol Ferris, like Barry's one of the only ones that had this relationship develop even in the Silver Age when everything was campy, and they get married and he tells her that he's the Flash, and like, you know, it's even though it's often handled in like weird ways, he was still always like kind of ahead of the curve in overarching plots, but not really writing at all. So
I have a question.
Iris, yes.
Do you like their relationship, Ryan?
In retroactive stories, yes. Here, Iris is not a character.
That's what I wanted to say. This whole story feels like what happened with like Spider-Man and a lot of married characters later on, where the writers really fucking hated having them be married, so they basically throw in dumb bullshit to like create like bullshit drama.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
and this is a good example because this mentally telepathic girl is drawing Barry towards her, and Iris is convinced that Barry's cheating on her with this girl now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and it's just so funny because Iris has put these tracking devices into all of Barry's costumes so that she can track him down.
She knows he's the Flash, which I like that aspect of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But
So-
it's one of those things because they have like the relationship is pretty much set like at the end point of what most superheroes relationships are. It feels like this whole thing is just bullshit just to make people keep reading.
Yeah, I agree. One fun thing about the relationship is when Barry finally confesses that he's the Flash to Iris, because they'd been married for a little while when he finally tells her, and she says, "Oh, I knew for a while because you talk in your sleep. I just wanted to wait until you told me because I didn't want to make you uncomfortable," which I think is like I think that's really funny.
Not even that she like deduced it; it's that he talked in his sleep. He's like, "Oh, the Flash."
Yeah, I think that's like kind of funny.
Gotta
Well,
go
that's more
fast.
of the Silver Age Goofy and sleeping into the monster.
Yeah. But so Iris is like really upset, and she's like, "I think he might be cheating on me. I have to do this tracking device thing." Meanwhile, this guy Clive Yorkin is just like drooling out the window, like looking at her, and he sees a picture of police scientist Barry Allen, and it's later revealed that Barry was one of the scientists who was like in on like lobotomizing this guy, which is like pretty weird.
Yeah.
So
I was like, well, clearly anyone that was doing this is in the wrong. You turned him into this man.
yeah. So then Barry finally is dragged to this teenage girl's house who's this big fangirl, and she's like, "I've used my powers to finally find out who you were, or to get you here so I can find out who you are." She's like, "You're not like super buff like those other heroes. You're all like slim and sinewy, and like
I've never
I'm
had
so
before,
attracted
by the
to
way.
you."
Sinewy.
Really?
Like
Yeah.
that's a
For like in terms of like describing something attractive, like wow, he's all sinewy. That sounds like something out of a horror movie. Like, oh, he's all like.
My favorite thing too is like he's not drawn any differently than like most heroes' physiques.
Yeah, he's
You're
extremely
different
buff.
than Superman.
yeah.
yeah.
For the Silver Age, yeah, like for like I'm used to like the '90s physiques where everyone was masculine and buff, which is more realistic than that. But like for the Silver Age, it's not that different.
So then, what a twist. She is like, "Finally, I get to see who you are, the man I've been pining for, my love." And she forces him to take his mask off, and she's like, "I can't believe it. You're the most boring-looking man in the world."
Yeah, she gets so mad. She's like, "You know what? Fuck you. First it was John Travolta, now you. I'm out of here." And she like drives away.
And this actually, Carrie Bates uses this kind of plot again later, where Heatwave, one of Flash's villains, knocks him out and looks at his mask, and he's like, "I don't know who I was expecting, but I don't recognize who this guy is." like if you were to pull off like Batman's mask, you'd be like, "Oh, it's Bruce Wayne." But like Barry's just some guy. So basically, Heatwave just has to wait until he runs into Barry Allen on the street, and then he's like, "Shit, I know who you are."
Yeah, they did that in the Justice League cartoon as well. Lex Luthor and Flash saw bodies, and he takes off his mask. Saying, "Now I know the Flash is. I have no idea who this man is."
Yeah, and I think that's really funny.
Yeah.
So Iris confronts him in the hotel room, and she's like, "I can't believe you." And he's like, "Wait, it's not what it looks like."
I like how she's able to leave.
I know.
She's able to go out and drive in her car and get into a car accident before the Flash can react.
If only the Flash was super fast, I could stop her.
Yeah. Yeah. So she goes and she's just so like manic and upset that she's driving away, and like she careens into traffic and she crashes her car, but Flash saves her just in the nick of time. And then she's just like, I'm so sorry that I overreacted. And he's like, that's it. Don't worry. I'll tell you the story. And he tells her the story, and she's like, oh, that makes sense. And she's like, look, you look so sad that she thought you were boring looking. You can't be lying.
Yeah, that was really funny to me. She's like, your ego is obviously hurt. Because he's like, can you believe it? Ordinary.
That's why it's annoying me, because it's like such a non-plot, ends like nothing, and then now goes on to the real plot, which is the masquerade party.
Yeah, because they get home and she's like, oh, look, there's a package from a costume shop, and it's like, oh, right, there's a party we're supposed to go to where people are dressed up as superheroes and villains.
One thing that tipped me off, because I actually didn't remember anything about Iris. I just block out anything you guys have mentioned. But when she's like, we should have a baby, or they both agree at the same time, let's have a baby, I was like, oh no, you can't have a family.
No.
Yeah.
Don't have a family.
It's like a cop being like, I'm gonna retire this week.
Especially for there are some superheroes that are married, but like except for some really rare exceptions, most superheroes don't have kids, because then it's always becomes a question of you're putting your life on the line when you have kids to take care of.
Yeah. You can kind of still go out and be superhero if you're married, but like if you're not raising your kids, then like you're kind of an asshole.
Yeah, dad.
Yeah. So and one thing I do just want to push back a little on the non-plot of their relationship problems is I do agree that this is wrapped up extremely quickly, but I do also like that, like, a lot of times, a lot of Barry and Iris's relationship at this point when they're married is there are these little problems that seem to be bigger arcs, or like, are they going to break up or whatever, but then they talk them out and they get resolved. And like, even though it's I'm not defending that it's like a teenage girl's using ESP to find, like, that's obviously stupid. But like, I do like that this isn't like Iris and Barry are like breaking up. Like Spider-Man and MJ break up all the time for dumb reasons.
Yeah.
And like, I like it better that like they have this drama and this conflict, and then they talk it out, and it never feels like they're gonna get divorced or anything. It just feels like a problem a married couple has.
Yeah. I actually like that kind of like drama and that tension more than actually the supervillains threatening them, because there's some other stuff that comes up later where it's like, this supervillain's doing this, and it's like, I didn't care about that. Whereas here I'm like, how do you resolve this like telekinetic girl forcing him to like take off his clothes in front
I
of
would
her,
have liked it better.
And his wife
I would have
finds
liked it
out.
better if they talked right away, but since they did like, I'm leaving before you can display anything, and somehow I still get away before.
Yeah, they do like, oh, I'm a woman, I'm too overcome with grief, I have to get into a car accident, and you have to save me. It is.
I know that if like the editor was like, you need an action scene here, so Iris has to get in the car
probably.
crash.
That's what I wonder. I'm like, if he had run
Absolutely,
after her and then they talked it out with the car thing, made it like I still have to superhero her.
Yeah, you still need like more like drama.
Yeah. So speaking of drama, Barry's like, I need a costume, and Iris is like, oh, they were out of Batman costumes, and Barry's like, I'll just go as the Flash, I guess, because I already have this costume. And
you forget too that Clive Yorkin's watching them, and he realizes that Barry is the Flash, which is where we get the Clive Yorkin backstory. And I'm like, what good does this do? This guy doesn't talk.
So, but now instead of just hating Barry Allen, this guy also hates the Flash. So, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Then Barry's like friend, Frank, one of his like coworkers, he's a cop, he's a detective, I think, shows up and he's like, I'm also going to be the Flash. And there's a lot of like Iris being like, ooh, 2 Flashes are taking me to the party.
I just want to point out,
she dresses up as Batgirl.
I just want to point out, it's one dumb thing about comics when they do masquerade parties. No like fan costumes ever gonna be good as like the real superhero costume, but they always act like they're indistinguishable.
I know, like this
one thing to
cosplay.
defend about that, Barry's a huge fucking nerd, and he always talks about how much he fucking loves comic books and stuff. Like in his real life, not as the Flash. So I could see him going hardcore cosplay.
Why would his cop buddy dress up perfectly like that?
That's the thing. Like think about how many, especially adults. Most adults don't like. Especially in 1970, like maybe now with cosplay being a thing more popular.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like you would now have a picture perfect.
And my other confusing thing is, why would they let people dress up as supervillains at this place? It's just weird to dress up as like villains that are on the
murder
loose.
people. Like I'm gonna it's like
this is
you
one of those,
either dress up as a police officer or like Ted Bundy or something.
This is one of those. That's one of those weird transition things, because like in the 50s, supervillains were not treated as credible threats. Like stories about Penguin's mom coming to town. You have to pretend to be a superhero while his mom was in town, and Batman helped him doing it. Because there's so much of a non-threat like the Penguin was. Like, it's like most villains were like that. Like they were considered like jokes. But then there's a transition where now spoilers, we're gonna get villains murdering people.
Yeah. And one other thing just about the costume thing. The Rogues, Flash's villains, have their own tailor that works in Central City named Jambi. So he probably supplied a lot of these costumes, you know, because he makes the real ones. So anyway, there's a lot of like, wow, I can't believe Captain Cold and the Flash are shaking hands. Ha 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 ha. Because it's just guys in costumes.
Yeah.
Then Barry gets a phone call from the chief that there's some developments in the big heroin sting that they're trying to bust, and Barry's like, "Okay, I'll be there tomorrow." And then the Clive Yorkin attacks his buddy who's dressed as the Flash and throws him off a balcony, and he's like, "Fuck you."
I like how his buddy is not even concerned. Like, I thought maybe he'd die here, but instead, as he's being thrown off, he's just like, "What was that?"
That's why I brought up the fake Star of the Iris thing. There's a lot of stuff where it feels like it's building towards something, and then just goes nowhere. Like him, just as a Flash, is like, I thought he was gonna get murdered because he got mistaken identity, but no, he just gets tossed aside a bit, and he's like, okay, wow, that was weird.
A lot of 70s DC is like this.
So weird.
So then
someone just throws me off a balcony. So awkward.
Barry's upset. Yeah, Barry's upset because some guy dressed as Green Lantern is getting really handsy with his wife, and then Barry's like, "Oh, it turns out it's actually my real friend Green Lantern. That's fine. You can get handsy with my wife, I guess."
Yeah, Green Lantern had nothing to do but to show up at this masquerade party, and
and then he leaves, and it's like, why were you here? I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, they want to show you that he's gonna take his lady.
Yeah. Then they drink a bunch of punch, and the guy dressed as Sandman has been going around going, "Zap, got you."
That is the one small thing that I liked about this, is that it really did build him up, that you keep wanting to like be like, that guy seems like trouble, because he keeps going, "Zap, got you, Zap, got you." So you're like, I bet.
Yeah, I thought that's
doesn't he drug the Flash?
No, that's later on revealed that has nothing to do with that. But like,
okay. I thought he was the goon that was in question.
No,
I think he was a red herring the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So Barry, all of a sudden, he's going up. He's giving Iris a tour of this mansion, and he starts to get really, really woozy. And he's like, "Somebody drugged the punch. Wait, no, that can't be right. Other people would be affected, but Iris seems fine." So Iris runs to get him a glass of water, and then he goes, "Wait, oh no, what's going on?" And he hears Iris yelling, and he goes into the back room, and there's Clive Yorkin, and Iris is on the ground, unconscious. And then Clive Yorkin just jumps out the window.
Yeah.
And Barry goes to check on Iris, and he's like, "Oh no, oh no." And he passes
He's like, Iris,
out.
Iris.
Yeah, he is. He's literally like that.
Iris.
Yeah.
Iris! 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 Ah! No, this isn't happening! There's no reason for me to go on. What? What am I fighting for?
And he passes out on the floor next to him, and some guy dressed as Batman is like, "We have to get one of them to a hospital right away, but I'm afraid the other one is dead."
And this is like when Ryan said, like, the weird transition where all of a sudden this weird, like, Silver Age story just becomes real out of nowhere. Because reading this, I thought, oh, it feels like when Lois Lane dies in one of those Silver Age stories where, oh no, Lois Lane's dead, but no, Iris is really dead. Spoilers.
Yeah, Iris is dead. A character that's been in this book for 20 years.
Yeah. Really dark too. That they're like, finally we'll have kids, we're happy, and then it's like murdered by this strange man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the actual reason why I wanted to do this story is, well, not only like it's gonna lead into a bunch of stuff, but I find the fallout to be really, really interesting. So Sly, take us away.
So one thing I want to point out is I always love looking at these old comic ads. There's one with OJ with kids being like, "Look at this great role model."
Oh yeah.
OJ is.
Yeah.
I also saw the D&D basic one, and they're like, basics for kids, but if you're ready to move on to the next level, go to D&D expert. And I'm like, damn, basics for kids? This is a lot, all those siege rules and stuff?
We're playing
expert.
expert.
I felt with all
the
kids, the drawn kids like playing it around the table and stuff. I'm like, the basics still pretty hefty.
Yeah.
It's
so I always call it basic, but basic was the first set of that edition. Expert was where all the siege rules. And
so that's what we're playing. We're playing.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Because I'm like, damn, these kids are way too young to we're always like doing calculations. And
as
stuff.
unrelated as that seems, that actually is part of the appeal for a lot of comics for me. Is a lot of this stuff has never been collected.
Yes.
So I've read basically all of Barry's run has never been collected. So I've read it all in single issues, and it's really, really fun. Same thing. A lot of Wally's run hasn't been collected either. So I've read a lot of that in singles too, and I find them to be really, really fun. It's like watching, like, when people used to tape shows and the
Yeah, I
commercials
love
would
that.
still be on.
Yes, I love
and
that.
it is very fun, and to me, it helps contextualize the times a little bit, where, like, you're reading it as dated, but it's also getting cut with, like, ads with O.J. Simpson and, like, basic D&D. That, to me, it feels more like fun time capsule stuff than, like, serious literature. And when I read, like, 90s comics and there's, like, ads for, like, Ocarina of Time and, like, Final Fantasy VII, and, like, that, to me, it makes it, like, it makes it more of a cultural experience
Yeah,
than
I agree.
literature. I just think that's fun.
I agree.
This one ad just later in the comic is for a Superman issue where it's Superman with a gun shooting the city of Canada. I'm like, I agree, Superman. Fuck that small city.
So up is where the last story left off. Flash is getting up after everyone's like, one of them is dead, and he's like, I gotta go get Yorikin, and everyone's like, no, you're like barely able to stand, but he's like, no, gotta get Yorikin. Everyone thinks he's Barry dressed as the Flash. It's like, Barry, you gotta calm down, and Barry falls out the window, and he disappears when everyone else tries to follow where he fell. And Flash is like now chasing after Yorikin, but they get to fight, and
He like
starts
basically
getting
beats him up so bad he starts melting.
Yes.
And,
But and this is like uncharacteristic for the Flash. Like he's punching him over and over again, like thousands of times. He's just like, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. You know, because of you, my wife's on her way to a hospital. Because of you, she may never be the same again. And like, this to me is like, I find this stuff to be much more compelling than the first issue, where like here he's overcome with rage, and the Flash has always been the most optimistic hero in DC, and seeing him just like beat up who we established earlier is just a normal guy, like beat him so that he's like,
Well, this is not normal.
no, but like he's
just a guy without powers.
He doesn't have powers. He's a guy.
Yeah.
And it's just like the sound effects are like bam, 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 bam. And you see these speed effects of him just like completely mutilating this guy's face.
Yeah.
And then the guy starts melting, and you just hear this like this like narration of like, prepare 10 cc's of sedative. The patient's hallucinating.
Yeah, so it's a hallucination. He wakes up in the hospital bed, and he's like, I gotta find Iris. Where's Iris? And the doctors try to restrain him, and they sedate him.
And they reveal that he's been in the hospital for 2 days.
Yes. And so he wakes up, and his police buddy, the guy who's in the other Flash costume, I forget his name already. Frank, he's like, okay, they didn't tell you what happened in the hospital because you were still shaken up, and they want somebody close to you to say it. So he gives him Iris's wedding ring, saying Iris is dead. And he's like, no, this is some Silver Age bullshit. Like, she's gonna be waking up this shit. Like, no,
this isn't happening.
no,
And one thing, like, contrary to what I was saying about a lot of 70s DC, like, this does take place over like 2 or 3 pages of just Barry in a wheelchair being like walked around like the grounds of the hospital with his friend just like talking to him. And it's very rare that comics from this era would spend this much time without that action scene like we were talking about before, of just him being like, and Barry's like feels guilty. He's like, I like demolished Clive Yorkin. He might be dead. I might be a murderer. And he's like, no, that was a hallucination. Like, you know, and this is when he gives Iris
After you
ring.
fell out the window, you were done.
Yeah. And like, this is like, I find the scene to be like pretty well done.
I agree.
yeah, he takes him to the fucking morgue so they can see Iris's body. It's pretty dark.
Yeah.
And also, but it's funny because he still does the choke thing in the dialogue that Archie Comics does. That I always find corny.
Yeah.
But it is a powerful.
Choke, take me home, Frank.
At the same time, not the same time, but a little bit later,
Also, they reveal that he was spiked with a heavy dose of angel dust.
that's
at
a
the
very
party.
important plot point. And it was like enough to kill like a normal person. It's only because he was a Flash that he's able to survive.
Yeah.
And so on the Justice League satellite, Justice League are like, maybe Flash should have leave of absence to deal with his mourning period.
The thing that I really like about this, and I think it's the reason why Green Lantern was in that last issue, is to establish that they're friends, even though there are way better ways to do that. Superman's like, let's make it official and grant the Flash a formal leave of absence. And Green Lantern's just like, man, we're talking about Iris. Like, we all knew her. Someone I loved like a sister. Like, how can you be so callous about it? And Batman or Wonder Woman are like, take it easy. We're all upset. We must remain calm. The unity and league of the league is important. And like, I do like this, that they make the Trinity as these like less personal icons, and Green Lantern's just like, this is our friend. Can we like be human beings for a second? Like,
Yeah,
I think that
This whole thing
that's
is really
interesting.
sad. Like Flash's reaction to all this is like really, it's tough.
Yeah, because he shows up and he's just really
And he's like,
upset
"Can we?
about everything.
I need you guys' help to bring Iris back to life. You guys, like, you're Superman and stuff. You have to be able to do this." And everyone's like,
I do really like when he
"Yeah."
shows up. He goes, 3 of you are just the JLA members I came to see, and he's basically like, Batman can't do shit. Fuck you.
Yeah, well, because he asks each of the 3 god tier characters, like,
Yeah.
you must be able to bring the dead back, right? And they're like,
Yeah, he even tells like Green Lanterns, like, if it was Carol that was dead, I would do everything in my power to help her. Like, you have to help me. He's like, oh, Barry, you don't know what you're asking.
Green Lantern does say, not that I can't. He's like, I won't. He's like,
Yeah.
he's like that. Neither of
Yeah.
us has the right to do that. And then he's like, fuck you.
It's one of those things that's press shit because later on you find out Green Lantern does have powers to control life and death, at least a little bit. And the Trinity stuff that Ryan mentioned also makes the stuff with Identity Crisis more prescient, where it feels like they can't talk to them about these dark matters because they have to be upstanding citizens all the time.
Because seeing this scene, like, I know, like, Identity Crisis has a lot of problems, but seeing this scene of Barry doing this, like, I completely understand why in this room Barry votes to lobotomize Dr. Light.
Yeah.
Like, this is where it happens, and I'm like, this makes sense to me.
Yeah, this is the room where it happens. So then Flash starts going around the rage, starts being a shadow. He's like you motherfucker, I thought you were my friends, but you're not going to respect my wife for me.
I'm sick of you all. I'm sick of this place.
And they start
I'm fed
fighting.
up with this world.
And he's able to, like, get them all to run around pretty well. Like, Green Lantern tries to zap him, but he uses yellow boots to, like, negate his powers. And then he creates a whirlpool.
Oh man, I love that weakness so much because it is just like it's such a dumb, strange, and also extremely common weakness.
Yeah.
You can just wear yellow and beat the shit out of Green Lantern.
Yeah, and he's like, shit, I guess I can't. Superman, help.
That's what happens later on. Spoilers. And the reason why they did that because Superman became ridiculous. I think they did it on purpose because Superman became ridiculous. That kryptonite was everywhere. So they're like, okay, make it something super obvious, like yellow. Okay, now we can have it coming, but every issue should be plausible, I guess.
Yeah.
So Nixon shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they just fight for a while. They're still
And they pretty
fighting.
much they eventually get him subdued.
I do love
and
I do love seeing his fighting style because I guess I haven't seen that much Flash. Like when he's all tied up, he just starts spinning and drilling his way into the floor.
It's fun. Like, this is what I mean. Like, watching the Flash do stuff is fun.
Yeah, so they subdue him and then they're like, "Hey, wake up! It's your wife's
Well,
funeral."
he passes out from exhaustion.
Oh yeah, he wakes up just after his wife's
I
funeral.
know it's so
They're
fucked up. He's like, "I remember fighting the Justice League," and they're like, "Yeah, we gotta go to the funeral now." And
they're like, he seems better now. All that heroin problem is over.
oh yeah, and they kept saying he's only. They keep bringing up the fact that all the angel dust, it must still be affecting him, but I'm like, he's grief stricken, and you were just like, I don't really care that much.
That's how I feel like.
Yeah.
I know they do it to be like, Barry's still an upstanding guy, and it's great because you can explain away this like this outlash.
Yeah, but this is a totally normal reaction when your wife is fucking
Yes.
murdered, and
That's what I was thinking. It would be cool if they didn't need to be like, well, this could be residue in the system making him act like that, instead of just being like this.
Superman literally looks
agree.
into his veins and says, "I see PCP there."
This is one of those things. They do this a lot in comics, but then when they touch upon these issues again, they usually just act like that was just a bullshit excuse and this was the real thing.
okay.
Yeah, and like modern comics, you look back on it, it was actually like trauma that caused.
Yeah,
this.
like they do this a lot, and then they have like a bullshit explanation in the issues themselves. But whatever they refer to later on, they never really. I doubt they ever talk about. Oh yeah, he was on drugs the entire time.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And we also get classic Batman that's like, what if he freaks out tomorrow? What if he reveals his secret identity, or worse, reveals ours? We can't let him go to his wife's funeral. And Wonder Woman's like, shut up, we can. We'll make sure he's okay.
Yeah, so the funeral has a lot of big characters, and you got Wally West there as a kid. You have Ralph Dibny, which I'm like, I know him now. I remember a funeral with him once.
Poor Sue.
Yeah,
Barry's parents are there.
Iris's dad
You
is
got
there.
Dexter Miles, the curator of the Flash Museum.
I was like a little like at least like frustrated with this because at the funeral it's like I want to see how are their parents gonna react, like how is Barry's parents gonna talk to him, and how does Barry talk to Iris's dad?
Yeah.
But Iris's dad is just there to cry and then that's it. And I'm
it's-
like, because it's primarily just like let's see the Justice League interact with him. I'm like,
Yes.
no, I want to see Iris's family, like him interact with them.
No,
This
It's
is exactly
probably imagine-
why I wanted to do this story, because like there are elements of like modern sensibilities and like nuance in here, but it's very much masked under 70s comic books.
Yeah. They probably have assumed, little kids don't want to read fucking Barry Allen talking to an old man. They want to see him talking to Superman.
So the funeral, everyone's like, he's gonna be fine. He's gonna be fine. He's a strong guy. He's gonna be fine. And then afterwards, he calls the newspaper and says, "Hey, it's the Flash. I want you to be at the Flash Museum tomorrow because I'm gonna be giving my final words." And people are like, "What the fuck? Maybe he's gonna retire." And so then Melanie, the ESP psychic girl, is like, "Oh, damn, his wife got killed right after I dragged him to my apartment."
I think now she's like, I better stop acting like a spoiled child and try and make him cheer up.
Oh my god! And then we're just thrown immediately back into the camp.
Into this fucking fight with the Mirror Master.
Yeah, because Barry's running around and then he sees like a mirror and he's like, "What? It looks like another Flash running at me." But then he crashes through the mirror. And it's like, "I'm the Mirror Master. I'm sucking up money into my floating hover."
And like I always point out about Mirror Master, he's a character that can be cool, but he wears like a green and orange costume and like he's using mirrors to melt the street here.
Yeah, his costume is super dumb for his power.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or what his like gimmick is.
Yeah,
but it's like he's melting the street with his mirrors and
none of this
the
matters.
Flash.
None of this is fucking.
No, but I just want to bring it up because it's funny because Flash throws a bunch of chocolate bars at him and they melt onto him and he falls off his machine and that's how.
Yeah,
Flash
he clogs the money sucker with chocolate.
Yeah,
and then he's like, "Ooh, day is saved." So then he goes
and he throws out his ring, which has his costume in it, which we could just skim right past. And then he decides like, that's it, that'll be my last fight.
What a way to end, throwing chocolate at the Mirror Master.
And then he goes to he goes as Barry Allen to the Flash Museum. He's like, "Hey, before Flash gets here, I want to just say some words." And everyone's like, "Hey, go away. We want Flash."
I earned my living as a police lab technician that was only half the story. In truth, I was leading a double life. And then Melanie, the ESP girl, is like, "What is he doing?" And then everyone's like, "Shut up. We just want to hear about the Flash."
Until Barry was like, "I believe in a double life." Like, everyone's expecting Flash. Barry Allen shows up saying, "Guys, I believe in double life." Everybody's, "Fuck you, man. We want the Flash."
I like this a lot because you know how like we talk about how like Clark Kent's mild manner and everything. The thing, Barry's secret identity is that like Barry Allen is the most boring fucking guy in the world, and he's never on time to anything, and everyone's just, and it's not because like it's part of his cover, it's that he's legitimately super boring and like oafish, and every single time he's like, "I'm the Flash," people are like, "You're not. You're just trying to be more interesting. You're too boring to ever be the Flash."
So they won't let him
I
talk.
think that's so silly.
So this is basically a scene from the Hannah Montana movie where they're like, we don't want Miley Cyrus. We want Hannah Montana, the popular one. Get the fuck out of here. And so Miley Cyrus is forced to live on her Hannah Montana.
I remember that classic scene when people yell at Hannah Montana, "Get the fuck out of here."
But basically they're like, we want you to put on this costume and dance for us, monkey. So Barry's like, "Okay, I'll be the Flash though."
Yeah, and Melanie goes to him.
No, that isn't what happened. Yeah,
no, but that's what everyone's reaction is. Everyone's like, "Fuck you. We don't care about your deep emotional reveal. We want the Flash."
Monkeys, like,
Melanie finds him. Is like, "Hey, you dropped this ring. You can't quit being the Flash. People need you. No one can take your place." And he's like, "You're right." And she's like, he's like, "Wait, tell me how I look." And she goes, "Ordinary, extraordinary." And he's like, "Now I can go be the Flash."
Now people accept me. Now that I wear this costume.
I feel bad for all those
Trauma
reporters
resolved.
that were called here just for the Flash to be like, "Don't worry, nothing's different."
And this is another one of those cheap like fake outs where like, echoing the Silver Age style where for like a half an issue it's like maybe Flash is gonna quit. Oh wait, he's not. It's over.
Yeah. So now we're skipping ahead to 281, and we are now going to meet our star here, Eobard Thawne, Professor Zoom.
Reverse Flash.
The Reverse Flash.
Also known as
Zoom. Also known as.
No, I thought Zoom was different than Professor Zoom.
Yeah, Zoom is different.
Yes, Zoom is different.
Can he be called Dr. Zoom or no?
No spoilers. So the thing about Eobard Thawne is all you need to know is he is from the future, and apparently in the 25th century they've reached a Marxist utopia where there is no crime, and he's just a big piece of shit asshole. So he just comes back because he thinks it would be funny to make the Flash's life miserable. And we've met him before, like in Flashpoint and stuff, but this is more like earlier Zoom, where it's still the same. He has no nuance. He's just a dickhead.
Yeah,
and the reason why I wanted to...
In Flashpoint, he went back to Texas to kill Barry's mom, and just to be a dick. And so it's very related to that.
I can so imagine us having time travel abilities and being like, "Man, if I went back 500 years with the technology I have now, I can just fucking do whatever I want."
Yeah, I'm gonna kill George Washington's mom.
and the thing that I like about Professor Zoom is I feel like there are very few villains that their strict motivation is just to be an asshole to one guy. Like he doesn't everything he does is just to be like a bully, and I think that's really funny. Like he's not trying to conquer the world. He's not trying to get rich. He's just like, I'm bored and I fucking hate the Flash.
Yeah, I was thinking there's an issue later on that was reminding me of you where I'm like, oh my god, you would do this to us.
There is I don't know how much of it is in the Silver Age, but at least in the modern age, there's like a fucked up element because he is a murderer, and having a speedster can kill people. Honestly, is more scary than anything the Joker could do.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Which is why this story is interesting because Barry does what acts a lot more appropriately than Batman would in such a scenario. But I find Eobard Thawne to be fucking horrifying in concept.
I just have one question. How did he get his Speed Force powers?
I think he just, because he's in the future, I think he just like looked up what the Flash did and did the same shit.
How did no other people do this too? Like, how come he's the first person from the 25th century to do this?
The time travel stuff in DC is really stupid.
I don't know.
It was just like, I feel like if this was replicable, I feel like you'd have more Speed Force people. How in the future universe everyone becomes Superman. I'm like, wouldn't you want more Flashes? But
I mean, that's the thing. Like DC has a lot of just like, this is in the future. Don't think about it.
Yeah, remember
Sure.
Booster Gold's like a janitor at a fucking museum, and he's like, I'm gonna take all this technology. Like in reality, Dawn and Booster Gold, they destroyed all the timeline, and everything's fucked by now. Like the shit they've done.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
The future apparently doesn't have the death penalty anymore, but there's a guy who can run as fast as the speed of light and kill people. You have to kill him.
No, you rehabilitate him.
Hey,
I know.
we'll get to it.
The Marxist
know.
utopia.
They're like,
Yeah.
he's like, I brought him back to 25th century jail a bunch of times. It's like, there's obviously a problem then.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Reverse Flash that's interesting is up to this point, he's just been kind of like a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But I mean,
He hasn't been any different from like Captain Cold or Captain Boomerang, right?
Yeah. And okay, I kind of have to spoil it because it's super clear by the way this episode is structured. It's pretty clear who killed Iris, I think.
Yeah.
But the thing is, this is an escalation that he hadn't, like, people, like Sly said before, villains weren't killing a bunch of people all the time at this point. So like this was like a new escalation of it, and we see that it escalates pretty quickly throughout the rest of this episode to the point where it addresses the issues that Phil is exactly talking about.
The best way to imagine it, like we know those weird one-off villains like Jimmy Olsen comics, like Magnum Man and like Titan Man from the Lois Lane comic. Like imagine one of those people like keeps getting caught over and over again, and then one day he just becomes a serial killer. Like,
But that's the thing is, like, in this future utopia, it's like they must realize the point that like when someone has such great power and they're testing out, can I steal with this? Can
I know, but when I use that comparison, I'm saying like imagine those Jimmy Olsen stories. Like they're not going to go into deep nuances of how to execute criminals. They're just having a fun story where Superman catches the villain at the end. Everything said, like now this is a transition where. Now, like they're having more serious feelings, and now those questions are being raised. Like, it's kind of fucked up that he's able to do this.
Yeah, because like up to this point, he wasn't really like a big murderer, and we have murderers in real life, and I don't support the death penalty. So like now that he's starting to murder people using powers, these questions do come up, and it's like. This is why I find this era interesting, even if it isn't always the best to read. It's interesting because it's like slowly introducing these concepts and discussions into a kid's medium.
One addendum I just want to add to that is that this is the first goofy guy to kill someone. Is that other people have tried to kill before. Like they've gotten into deadly situations, but they just haven't succeeded. Whereas he actually
that's true
is the first.
But
one
also, the tone of it is always like I'm gonna make you into a robot, and then you're gonna use your kryptonite. It's like it is it's like killing people. Like it's more like destroying. When they say on his cartoons, they can't say kill to destroy. It's like I'm going to destroy you. Like it's very
but they're dropping buildings and stuff on.
That's the thing.
I know.
Or they're like throwing cars into rivers where it's like you could drown in there. It's just that they never succeed, so you never treat it as this horrific act. It's just like, oh, thank God the Flash was there.
But it's like introducing moral quandaries into like Power Rangers. Like, oh, should we execute fucking Lord Zed? Like that's what the equivalent pretty much.
Yes.
So the one thing I just want to point out before we get into it is that now Don Heck has taken over a lot of the art duties, and he was a big early Marvel artist. Like he did a lot of Avengers, and I believe he did a lot of early Iron Man, and I just think his art is great. So that's
Oh yeah, I do. I want to say the art is pretty solid for most of these issues.
Yeah, it's nothing groundbreaking, but like I really enjoy Don Heck's just like sharp, kind of angular style.
It's kind of it's a lot messier than a lot of contemporary, which is why I like it. It kind of is like a predecessor to Gene Colan's art.
I don't know, guys. It's Shade the Changing Man.
Oh, I mean that's obviously true.
The 60s art is not comparable to one of the best artists of all time. Yes. Okay.
So it opens with Frank, Barry's friend, telling him, I have undeniable proof that Yorkin didn't kill Iris. And then something happens to him. And
he gets in a shootout with mobsters.
Yeah, so he gets in a shootout with mobsters. They shoot him a couple times in the chest.
So, well, it's these two guys. These two guys say that, like, we were hired to hit this guy. They're, like, arguing over whose hit counts.
So I found this funny thing. I thought this was a bait and switch. Like, he got into another matter of these mobsters while he was investigating to Iris. But no, the killer of Iris is related to these mobsters. Spoilers.
Yes.
So they shoot him in the chest and he shoots them. And they're like, oh no, it looks like he's dead. But then it turns out that he had a like bulletproof vest on. Oh yeah, and I forgot to the mobsters, like when Barry arrives and his friend's dead on the ground, he just starts clapping. And they're like, what? He's starting to clap? What's he up to? And he claps
good job,
so
folks.
fast. Yeah, that's what it looks like. It's not like he's not like angry. He's like grimacing. He's just like clapping really fast for them. And the sound like...
shockwaves.
Yeah, it devastates even the steel of their cars.
Yeah, it like destroys their cars, and I'm just like, man, the Flash is so cool.
I feel like Ryan acts like the way that when we were reading like Shonen and stuff, and we're like, man, that is such a cool, like Kenpachi's so cool. Now Ryan's like, look at Flash clapping really fast.
The thing is, okay, the reason why I think this is cool is the Flash has been a character since the 30s, and his power is that he moves quickly.
Yes,
and that to me seems like it would have only a couple uses, but writers find ways, even though it is super dumb that he does this. It's visually appealing to me that they keep finding different ways for him to use this really simple power. And I find, like I said before, I don't think it's good writing, but I think it's fun.
It's like Flash uncovering all different bankais, what the fuck they're called.
Yeah, it is kind of like that.
I'm not saying that this is dumb compared to Shonen. It's just funny hearing Ryan go like, he's so cool, where I haven't heard that in Bleach at all.
I want to say, as I found jarring when I first read The Flash, because I first read him in like just year one and stuff like that. So with power we haven't mentioned at all is he can vibrate through solid objects. So when I first saw him, like, what the fuck? Like, that's fucking crazy to me. But like,
well, he controls every molecule in his body.
I know, that's fucking crazy to me. And we'll see, like, that becomes relevant later on. They can control every molecule in his body.
Yeah.
And so his friend needs to go to a hospital, so Barry runs by a clothing shop and steals like a suit and a bowler cap, and then takes his friend to a hospital, and then returns the clothes back. And it's funny because he did it because he's like, what is it? If either the Flash or Barry Allen had brought Frank into the hospital, there'd be too many awkward questions to answer. I'm like, the Flash can just stumble upon a guy that's shot. Like, he's the Flash. He doesn't need to answer anyone. And he's acting so careful when I know this was like 10 issues ago, but the last issue we read was him at the like Flash reveal being like, I was leading a double life. And they're like, shut up, Barry.
Well, he was trying to be blunt. Now he's trying to be subtle. It's very different.
Yeah.
He goes into the police commissioner's or police chief's office, and he hears him on the phone saying, I want to see that corpse. Find the body. And so it's like, oh shit, he...
so Chief is in on it, very obviously.
Yeah, I feel like this is at least like an interesting... Like, I was more interested in this development of like, your boss is the one that's the head monster.
It's also a huge departure from Silver Age where they're not allowed to have cops be bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And this is one thing that like does suck about like having to skip around a little. Like the other things were a lot like there were issues in between these two of like Frank and Barry getting attacked by hitmen. Like, and this was a subplot that was building of the Chief's role in this like corrupt heroin scheme.
I think even the little we've seen like jumping around, I always appreciate because we jumped like several issues and Chief was at the funeral and stuff like that. We didn't mention him that much, so I find it really cool that like this was brewing and they talk about the heroin stuff. It was like the whole time you could see it was brewing in the background, and that's very creative.
And this arc had been brewing even before we started reading it. So like it's a shame that, but like we're not going to read 20 issues of this. It just does. It's a waste.
Yeah.
All we know is that the chief he has to obey this mysterious Mr. Zix. Sounds like Mr. Missapillik?
XYZ,
ZYX. It's ZYX. It's the alphabet in reverse.
Oh,
just to mix this with
fucking asshole. And then his friend is like, I've got this tape that proves that Clive Yorkin didn't kill
Barry Allen's friend.
Iris,
Yeah.
and he makes him just watch his wife die over and over.
Well, it's funny because of the way that Barry says, like, when the tape goes in, he's like, "Let's go, Frank. I can't wait to like watch her die."
But
I think it's more like he can't wait to finally get to the end of this.
I know, but it's
mystery.
just the way that it's delivered. Let's go. I can't wait.
but it's very boring because when they see the tape, York doesn't kill her, Yorkin. She just falls dead, it looks like. And then they start going slow-mo and seeing that there seems to be somebody behind the two of them. And Yorkin and Iris both react some behind them. And then Iris falls to the ground out of nowhere. So it seems like somebody was behind the whole entire time. That's the person that actually killed Iris.
Yeah, and he's like, I'll swear I'll find who did this.
Yeah, to counter Daryl's point about Barry's aloofness, it cuts back to him and he's crying and he's like, I thought it was over. Now I find out her murder is still at large. Oh, and even worse, his identity is still a mystery. And he's just like sitting there all like just, what doesn't add up about the scene? I don't understand.
Something must have been so fast as to kill Iris without even being picked up on camera.
He goes to her grave. He's like, "I'll find him, Iris, no matter what it takes. I swear." So then we turn into Vengeance husband again.
But no coke this time.
As he's running around, he sees all these spinning police officers that look like human propellers, and he stops them and he realizes it's Professor Zoom.
Yes.
And then they chase after each other across the countryside.
Not only just that, but just to really set up how much of an asshole this guy is, he's just like, Barry's like, I can't believe you escaped your 20th century prison cell. And he's like, big words I've come to expect from you. You superheroes always talk about our fight that you deliver. And he starts yawning and he's like, I might just go home out of sheer boredom, you piece of shit.
He actually, as Flash is chasing him, he's running backwards the whole time. And I'm like, he must
not
be
the whole
faster than the
time.
Flash.
I think he does that just as like, just to be a dick to him at one point.
But he says like I forget what the bullshit science he says like he
Their aura, that he's like, his aura is repelling, the Flash's aura is repelling him, which I was taking aura to be like the Speed Force without them
me too,
knowing what it is yet.
Yeah.
It is.
I was confused
They
for
mention it later. The aura keeps away the friction or something.
Yeah.
when he did run backwards, I was confused for a second, saying maybe Phil was right. Maybe he does run backwards. Maybe he is reverse fast.
And so he's running through, chases him around the globe like 50 times. He's running through the Sahara Desert, and Flash is like fucking
He
tired.
puts these, Flash is tired, so then he puts these heavy matter boots on him that just get heavier over time.
Professor Zoom does it. He doesn't just Flash is okay, so Flash is tired, so he's too tired to react to Professor Zoom putting these metallic boots on his legs. Like, it's the boots from
the weight
water temple.
triples every fifth of a second.
Yeah.
The weight triples. It's like, so in just 3 seconds, you're like 90,000 tons.
Yeah.
And so he starts just falling through the sand.
But as he's sinking through the sand in the desert, Professor Zoom's like, oh, by the way, in the future we know who killed Iris, and I know, fuck you, and then he leaves.
Yeah, he's like, you're gonna die.
Too bad you won't know because you're dead. Bye. He leaves.
You don't think this guy's fun?
I kind of do. I kind of like Reverse Flash.
I feel like he's kind of fun. I feel like he's a little too much for me.
Oh, I think it's so
Look,
good.
he deserves the death penalty so bad that I just like I want, like, I do like seeing him because I'm like, he's just like a fucking asshole, but I'm like, there's no, I can't imagine any justification for not executing him.
Yeah. the problem with Reverse Flash for me, I do like, it's the same problem I had with the show, because in the show Reverse Flash was, the actor who plays him was really great.
Yeah.
But he has to keep coming back because he's like one of the most iconic Flash villains. Like, Barry needs to kill him. Like, he needs to die forever.
Yeah, guys.
I know. I liked reading this because I'm like, this makes sense.
Yeah.
So the next issue has the cover, and the first page is just Flash falling through the earth because it's like he's so heavy, he's just like falling through the layers of the earth.
And it just recaps that Professor Zoom's just like, hey, I know who killed your loving wife, but I'm never going to tell you. Get fucked, asshole.
It's also made that he can't vibrate out of the boots because they're too tight or something.
They're too dense, molecule
Professor
dense.
Zoom has a bunch of bullshit future science that he pulls out of his ass all the time.
And he also says, like, his aura is preventing him from just melting in the center of the earth right away because his aura protects him from the friction when he's running, so, like, it must have a lot of heat resistance.
Yeah. But he says, like, this will only last another, like, minute or something.
Yeah. And so, as he's falling, the boots, because they're getting to the center of the Earth too, they start to like crack under the pressure and heat, I guess.
Yeah.
And so he's able to slip out. And
I didn't get it.
This is
This
so
dumb.
This part, I was like, I can't believe this happened. So he gets caught. He can't even see where he's going. He's just in the center of the Earth, and he closes his eyes, and he gets caught up in a magma
He's in like
stream.
molten lava, like, but he can't open his eyes because that'll hurt himself. Like his skin isn't touching molten lava, but he can't open his eyes because that'll hurt him.
And so the lava stream just so happens to be pushing him towards the surface, and a new volcano is born and shoots him out of it into where the Green Lantern's flying.
Yeah,
okay,
middle of the ocean,
so
middle of the fucking ocean. Green Lantern's flying here.
Okay, no. Green Lantern says, "I've been looking for you.
Oh, okay.
I have a power ring to home in on your JLA signal
Okay.
device.
Oh, okay.
And I promised myself the first moment I was free, I'd come by and see how you were doing. About Iris. Is there anything I can do that needs
As he
doing?"
just got shot out of a volcano, he's like, "Hey, you all right over there, buddy?"
And this is the kind of thing that is, again, like the Green Lantern scenes earlier, is handled super poorly. But since especially in DC, at this time, it's really nice that like they show that they're friends, and he's like, "I'm just checking on my friend and seeing if you need any help because your wife was murdered."
Yeah, I like this better. I would the Masquerade scene. I would like better if he just hung around the Masquerade, just was his friend for a while.
Yeah.
But this is actually makes sense. Like he would just pop by and Flash like, "No, I gotta do this thing my own. Green Lantern, get out of here."
They makes a chair with his Green Lantern powers so Flash can chill out and rest.
And then here we go, guys. Are you ready for the first appearance in the story? Barry's like, if they know who killed Iris in the future, I'll go to the future. And he pulls out and dusts off his cosmic treadmill.
And when I saw it, I'm like, oh man,
I wasn't even phased. I'm like, this is how this works. I know this now.
I know the cosmic treadmill. I remember the first time I heard about that, I was like, this is such a dumb idea. And now I'm
me
kind
too.
of like Phil, where I'm like, right, the cosmic treadmill that lets you travel back in time if you run on it long enough.
No, fast enough.
Fast enough.
He goes to the 25th century and
He causes a car accident.
but saves the people, and then the future cops are like, "Hey, you're the Flash. We respect you still in the future."
I think because it's implied that no one else knows him, but it's implied because he keeps bringing Professor Zoom here.
Yeah.
The police all know him now.
It's so funny the way fucking time travel works, because they're like, how's it taking you so long to catch Professor Zoom? And I'm like, it's time travel. Why isn't it immediate?
There's
Yeah.
no
Okay. So
time- there's no
that's
time.
that's even dumber because it turns out that Flash goes to the archives and looks up who killed Iris, and it turns out her murder was unsolved. So Flash is like, "Oh, he's making me waste my time here in the future while he's in the past wrecking my shit." I'm like,
love that.
You could go back in time before he even.
That part's really dumb, but I do really love that Reverse Flash was lying.
That was the other thing I
just
was
to make it
I was thinking about. You don't need to go and find out who killed her. Go back to when she died and stop the murder. Like, when he was like, I gotta go to the
Flashpoint.
future. But the thing is, he could have done it
we didn't
here.
mention-
He didn't know that it
We
would wreck
mentioned like when
everything.
Flash's mom shows up, like the most important character to the integrity of the entire DC universe in the story. Flash's mom.
Yeah.
It is crazy that this is used for time travel. Go 500 years from now to see in the news who killed my wife. Also crazy that Professor Zoom, he's like, I'm going to waste his time by telling him this, assuming that he's going to catch a lava magma stream and get shot out of a volcano. Because he was dead there. Like, he was not
Okay,
going-
the Flash has escaped a lot of death traps made by Professor Zoom. If I was him, I would assume he
if
gets out.
I was
too.
him, I would snap his neck in
It's
his
like-
boots.
Guys,
It's like
No, I'm saying that if I was Professor Zoom,
I know.
If this you have to think like Kira or L. Like you have one step ahead. Like if he survives this, I have to have backup plans. So if he survives my boots,
If he
I make
survives
sure-
going to the center of the earth, I'm gonna make him think he should go to the future. But I'm gonna be staying here.
And so what Professor Zoom does while all this happens is that the police chief boss decides to go to like South America because he's like, I gotta go to a place where the U.S. authorities can't touch me, because he thinks that the Flash knows that he's guilty. And then Professor Zoom dresses up as the Flash.
That's a twist, isn't it?
That's a twist that happens later.
I one point actually like this twist. So it is Professor Zoom, but they make you think it's the Flash busting the police chief.
Yeah, and he's being an asshole to Green Lantern too. And he's like, "Get out of my face!" And then he's like, I'm gonna catch you for your own good. It must be the angel dust acting up again. And he takes off the costume. And he's like, "I'm yellow, fucker."
So Green Lantern says that, saying, "Oh, you must be acting up again, Barry." But then when he tries to, he grabs Barry. He realizes he's not Barry. But then Eobard Thawne. Reverse Flash is like, I'm yellow. Fuck you. I'm completely immune to your powers. Green Lantern sucks.
Yeah.
My ass.
And then
love that.
Flash is like, I gotta get back in time. Again, so weird that he has to go back to like after all this crime happens. He can't just go back like a day.
Wait,
And-
why did Zoom arrest the police chief?
Because he want to make sure that because he's spoilers. He's Mr. ZYX. And
Yeah.
he saw that he was breaking, and he wanted to make sure he didn't know anything else. So because he asked him, "What do you know about Mr. XYZ?" And he says, "I don't know anything. I just saw him in the garage in thin air."
But
He
also,
loose end.
Here's the thing, though, is Professor Zoom being Mr. ZYX doesn't matter because he already needs to be arrested. So him having another charge
no,
for
I
like
took it as
conspiracy.
he just cuts off this loose end so that Barry can't learn anything.
Yeah, basically,
else.
I just viewed it as this guy is flaking because he's going to South America. He wanted to punish him and make sure he doesn't know anything that could incriminate him, to connect him to his drug ring.
Yeah.
But again, like
it
he's
is
already
so-
a criminal.
who
Like
cares?
it doesn't. For me, it doesn't matter.
Well,
like
no.
he's not thinking it's like, well, I better not get another charge levied against me. For
Well, because
being part of this.
because keep in mind he's still trying to keep this heroin racket. They reveal in the next issue that he wants his heroin racket
Oh,
because
right,
he's
yeah.
so bored that he wants to have a bunch of junkie slaves. So he's and he doesn't want the Barry to break up the heroin racket yet.
Yeah,
so
right, that
he
was
has
it. Not that he was covering for himself; he's covering his heroin racket.
But they don't reveal
junkie.
that till the next issue. So I was also like, what's going on?
Yeah,
So anyway, this issue ends with Barry's like, finally, I'm back. And as he gets back to the regular time, his cosmic treadmill explodes in his face.
So it was rigged to like when he gets back explode.
The exact moment Professor Zoom he'll come back at this exact moment and pull up.
Because he
I
couldn't
like
come
that-
back yesterday.
Not when he would run on it the first time, but when he would return from running on it.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, so then he's like, I know, but then next issue, next issue opens with Flash. As he's being blown up, he says, I know who killed my wife, and then he explodes.
yeah.
And then Professor Zoom is like, I got him. My plan worked. And so this is what I meant where I said, like, you can see, like, the touches of, like, the dark modern world seeping in. Because, one, Professor Zoom is in charge of the drug ring. He's a heroin dealer now, not just a fucking goofy guy making.
It's not like magic sci-fi Ray of mind control.
Yeah.
It's just straight up heroin.
Yeah, and then now he also has a heroin slave dressed up as Iris so he can fuck her like Mr. Plutonian.
yeah.
And he actually
Yeah, it's
he
really
keeps
weird.
watching while he's in Barry's house. He was watching the film of her death, and he's like, "Oh, fucking Iris, she's so beautiful. I wish she wasn't dead, but she's, oh well."
So she has a woman dressed up as Iris.
Not only does he have some slave lady that looks like Iris, he hires a plastic surgeon to make her
yes.
look
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
like Iris.
This is literally what Mark Waid conceived as the darkest sexting the Plutonian could do, and like this isn't a Bronze Age story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and the thing is, they explore a lot of what I think actually reads as like pretty specific, like obsessive abusive, like stalker
Yes, yeah,
type
very much.
personality. Where like at this point now, Professor Zoom is looking at this picture of Iris and be like, you know what? I better make a permanent record of my whole plan. And he records everything. And apparently what happened was a few days before the masquerade, he goes back in time and tells Iris, I love you. I want to win you over from Barry. You have to leave him. And she laughs in his face and is like, you're a pathetic piece of shit.
So he mind wiped her after this,
yeah, he mind wipes her.
With my 25th century device.
and he mind wiped her so she'll remember exactly when he brings it up again. So that way he hasn't revealed this to Flash. It's one of those bullshit like convenience like.
Yeah.
So explains the plot.
I mean,
makes sense.
post-hypnotic triggers are a thing in a lot of
I
stories.
know, but it's like.
It's just so dumb. Everything can be explained with 25th century devices. It's sort of like how science becomes magic a lot in comics, where it's like, you only remember that I told you, hey, let's fuck when I
But
see you.
But those are one of those things where, like, in like a modern good story, you will have hints like Iris met him beforehand, and that'll like be reflected in the timeline.
Yeah.
But no, it's just like it was perfectly erased from the timeline, and then it brought up later at the perfect time. Right before Green Lantern danced with her, Professor Zoom tried to gave her ultimatum: do me or you die. And she said, "I
Leave
won't
your
die."
Flash husband or die.
Yeah. And she says, no, even if I wasn't with Barry, I'd sooner drop dead before I let you lay a hand on me. Then it shows, obviously, he's the one who killed Iris.
He puts his hand through her fucking skull and vibrates and kills her.
Yeah, and he says, like, if I can't have you, nobody can. And, like, there is even though it's like there's a lot of silly things in here, everything he does where he's like obsessing over her, he says like, I'm better than your partner, you should be with me instead, she turns him down, like it all is like classical narcissistic like cycle of abuse kind of stuff.
But that's why this is a weird transition, because Don Heck, I'm used to him drawing fucking Ant-Man, the old school Ant-Man, where he fought.
Yeah, there's never been issues of domestic abuse in Ant-Man.
Yeah, but like it's just the same guy who drew Egghead, the iconic Ant-Man villain. He's drawing Professor Zoom doing a heroin ring, having a heroin sex slave, dressed up as his former lover, and now he's vibrating to a woman's head and killing her.
Yeah, the other thing we didn't mention that's really dark too, it's not just a heroin ring, it's that he's putting it in milk so people will get addicted to it without realizing
actually,
it.
it is worse than we were making it up.
And my favorite touch that we skipped over, but man, do I love this, is because early on when Professor Zoom's in Barry's house, he finds a picture of Iris. And he's like, oh, you know, he's thinking about the plastic surgeon turning that one lady into Iris. But all he says about it when he looks at the frame is, I do believe I can put this portrait of Iris to good use. I'm like, oh, man. Oh, boy.
I think he meant
after
the
this
surgery, right?
Yeah, that's what he meant, but we didn't know yet. So I was just like, I can only imply one thing from that.
So, and then after this whole long monologue, he goes, man, all that monologue has made me tired. And he just takes a nap in his big chair.
But then Flash was up in his TV saying, fuck you, now you rag yourself out, I'm back, baby. And turns out, he realized that Professor Zoom was going to disperse his molecules to a time bomb, so he's like, I will disperse my own molecules into the future. And that's how he survives the bomb explosion.
But how he destroys their whole factory and knocks it down and kills all the people inside, I have to assume.
I have to assume that as well.
No, he got them out. He's the Flash. He's always good.
He does say that, actually.
Okay.
You're unconscious henchman. How did he get back to the past if the thing was blown
He dispersed the molecules to the future, but he had to slowly build them together.
So no, he got mostly close. So what he did was in the last 0.3 of a millisecond or some shit, the last 100th of a second, he had the idea to shunt all his molecules several hours into the future, and that's why he shows up now.
Yeah, but the things exploded. How do you...
Yeah, but he went to the future before it exploded.
Yeah, but Phil's asking how can he time travel when cosmic treadmill's not under him?
Like from that point forward, you can't use it, right?
The cosmic treadmill still worked technically, so he was still able to use it as it was exploding.
But like the treadmill itself didn't go into the future. That's what's weird.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Let's not.
He throws Clive. Also in the recap, he threw Clive Dorkin out the window to make it look like he was fleeing. So poor guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Then they fight. It's dumb.
Professor Zoom and Flash, and they chase each other across.
Professor Zoom runs to his aquatic like spaceship or time travel orb, and
there is one point where Barry jumps behind him, grabs him by the head, and just starts slamming his face into the ground over and over and over again until he gets knocked out. And he says,
in case you've forgotten, the death penalty is destined to be brought back in the 25th century. So eventually you'll get convicted and executed.
Where did that come up?
Yeah,
that's a weird thing.
I'm like, is it destined?
Everyone knows true justice is death penalty.
I mean, maybe Reverse Flash is the guy who brings it back.
Yeah, they've been listening to Phil. They found in a time capsule old episodes of Divisive Issues, and they're like, "You're right."
So he sets the ship's computer to go to 2580, and as they're traveling, it starts moving backwards in time. And he's like, "What?" And then Professor Zoom's like, "Aha! I L'd your Kira, or I cured your L." And my time tripper is designed to automatically reverse and self-destruct if anyone but me operates it. And so they keep going back to the beginning of like time. They're in a time stream, and then Barry jumps out of the ship, and Professor Zoom is like, "No, don't leave me alone." And then he just goes
he wants them to die together. You didn't expect Barry to just jump off.
Also, guess what? 2580 is the 26th century. Okay, just FYI.
Yes.
Well, maybe he went ahead, so that's when the death penalty.
When the death penalty.
Oh,
yeah,
maybe.
he's like, you need to die.
I'll bring you back to the year the death penalty existed. Instead of just killing him yourself then at that point. You're
there are a lot of little dumb things that I think Carrie Bates, or maybe it's the editor, just kind of fuck up in the script. Like at one point when he's monologuing, he's like, "This is the record of Adrian Zoom." That's not his name. I don't know what that is.
Adrian Zoom?
Whatever.
Yeah.
His name is Professor Zoom. He must be Adrian Zoom then.
Yeah. So, yeah, then we're going to skip ahead a little bit, but the only thing...
Professor Zoom referred to himself as Adrian Zoom.
Yes.
So he has, he has so many names.
Yeah. So, at this point, like, the Flash is left in, like, a bunch of dimensions, and there's just a whole bunch of issues with just him, like... running through different like random one-off adventures through like a dimensional portal and everything, and then he just ends up stranding Reverse Flash in this like eternity of hell for a while.
Yeah, like limbo they refer to it as later.
Okay, so we're jumping ahead to issue 323 to 325. And one thing I just want to point out is Carmine Infantino comes in on art, and he was the co-creator of Barry Allen.
Isn't he the guy who drew the Caveman Ice issue?
Yes, and he also drew the Caveman in the Ice issue from our Patreon.
Glad you remember that.
Got a real stellar lineup
I was editing them, so I remember. I wanted to point that out.
Now, I'm not a big fan of Carmine Infantino's like late 70s, early 80s work. I think everyone looks like pretty heavy.
It's very generic like 80s art. It's strange. But I just wanted to point out, like, I don't think it's necessarily bad. It just stands out compared to his old stuff.
Yeah, it's not. His old stuff is like way tighter for me, but I do think it's really cool because around this point, the Flash was not doing super well, and they had started to talk about they were gonna, in a couple years, DC was gonna do their big Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover, and leading up to that, what they were gonna do is they wanted to cancel the Flash first, and they wanted to cancel it at issue 350. And as like a big anniversary issue, and then they were going to end it, and then he was going to show up, a year or two later and die. Spoilers. But so because of that, Carrie Bates starts writing the story that starts here, and it's something that we've been suggested to do on the show before, but it's so long. It went on for years and years and years, and because it's what 30, it's like 30 issues pretty much.
Because that's what you said. They stretched it out to try to time it up with Flash, Crisis on Earths, right?
Yeah, and I don't think there's ever been a story that's stretched out more than the trial of the Flash, because there are whole issues that are just there for recap, and like they do all these bizarre things, and I'll quickly recap it at the end, but it's just something that there's not enough interesting stuff in it for us to ever do it on the show, but I do want to just like hit a couple bullet points of how it ends up when we're done with this.
There's one that literally ends. I skipped a few issues. The one that literally begins with the last issue ends with a cliffhanger. Next issue opens with a cliffhanger. Then there's a flashback to one of the earlier Flash stories. Then it ends on the same cliffhanger. There's literally nothing happened in that plot.
Yes. So the only thing that's happened in the meantime between the last issue and this one is
a lot happens apparently because he gets a new wife.
A lot happens where he
has a new fiance.
So around issue 300, like Barry was still like mourning and everything, but it had been like a year or two, and he decided that he was gonna like kind of restart his life a little bit. He moves into a new apartment complex, and he starts like he has a slow and general, and I really enjoy the way this relationship advances. He starts by becoming friends with his neighbor, this woman Fiona Webb.
She's exactly like the telepath, by the way, which confused me for a
Yes,
minute.
she does, but she is not. Yeah. And it like a lot of it is him like, am I ready to have friends again? Am I ready to move into a new place and leave the home that I lived in with my dead wife? Am I ready to leave it behind? And he gets into this new apartment. He meets Fiona. They start like hanging out a little bit. They start dating, and it is like a rather, like, I haven't read it in years, but if I recall, it reads like very much like a better take than what we've seen about him like dealing with like, can I replace Iris? Will she always be like my soulmate? And should I be hung up on it? And like things that like I've seen lots of people in real life deal with and go through. And yeah, it's coupled with, you gotta fight Captain Cold and stuff. But like, I remember being surprised at how much I enjoyed that like lead into him like kind of starting this new chapter of his life. And they end up getting engaged. And we're about to look at his wedding.
Now, Ryan, do you like Fiona?
She's okay.
From reading this, like, I got, like, nothing from Fiona. I kind of got, like, nothing from Iris. Because I'm always interested in, like, the superhero girlfriends, whether or not they have a personality beyond being, like, I'm just a wife that's worried about you when you go out.
Well, if you guys don't get anything from her, guess what? Apparently DC didn't get either, because this is, like, her last appearance. This story.
Yes, pretty much. So the thing is, when I talk about 70s and 80s comics, and like I know I'm usually the one on the show that's like looking at extra looking at things like from feminist perspectives and things like that. Yeah. But like I have to turn that off to read comics before like the late 90s. Just like there's exceptions. There are really great, women characters from before then, but like love interests for male superheroes, like there's not a lot to work
That's
with. So,
all
like,
I got really from Fiona was that she was kind of like, she's only interesting in that Barry can juxtapose his relationship with Iris against her, and
which obviously is not a well-written female character by
is not,
any stretch.
All she doesn't
And,
know
like-
that Barry is
late to her wedding.
Yeah.
Because this is gonna.
What a
this
little
issue-
complaint.
Yeah. Like, and it's the kind of thing that, like, yes, it is really shitty that the, like, only woman in the story is used just as a vehicle to show a man developing.
The first woman gets murdered. The second woman is just there to be pining for her lover.
Yeah, and, like, I recognize that that's definitely shitty, and I'm glad you brought that up, Daryl. But if we're gonna talk about, like, the nuances of writing, like, emotional characters with personalities, even with that story leading up to this is still more than usual. So I find it, like we were saying before, more interesting from a development of comics as a storytelling medium rather than like this holds up.
Yeah, it's like it's above average, even if the average stinks.
Yeah, for sure. So the issue starts with it's the Justice League satellite, and it's just Firestorm and Wonder Woman talking, basically recapping that like Flash, he's getting
Firestorm's
over
like,
the
why does Flash get to marry and I don't? Why am I single? Oh, Barbara.
Yeah. And Wonder Woman's like, part of the Justice League, like, we don't intrude on each other's lives, but here's a recap of all the stuff Ryan just said, pretty much.
I was confused for a second because I didn't expect Barry to get married again so fast. I was like, is this a flashback or something? But no, he's ready to get married like 30 issues later.
Yeah. And the fact that his wife doesn't even know he's the Flash, I'm like, you might be rushing into this, Barry.
Well, apparently his first wife didn't know either until like a year later.
It has been 4 years.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Which I feel like
time jumps are also rare in comics too. That's another way why it's weird. Cause
no, it's not that it's a time jump. It's that we skipped ahead
Skipped.
4 years in the Flash.
No, but even then, like to acknowledge that, because basically Marvel.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Marvel like the only comic that ever did that, and they stopped at the 1970. Like literally, 1970 was the last year they acknowledged the actual time differences. A lot of times.
The time had changed, had
And
passed.
that's not even fully true. X-Men, Claremont's X-Men also acts like, a year ago in this issue. They do it randomly. It's really random when they do it and when they don't. But for the most part, they don't acknowledge that it happened in real time.
Yeah.
And what made it seem like a rush to me was that his parents hadn't met her yet. I'm like,
Yeah.
and they're like, we trust Barry. If he loves her, that's fine. But they're like, this is kind of weird that we've never met her and they're getting married.
I just want to point out real quick before I forget. I never knew Barry's real name was Barents, by the way.
It's not. It's Bartholomew.
But they call him Barents in his entire story arc.
I know. It's the same thing like Adrian Zoom. It's just not right.
Okay, so I was like, Barry's even more of a dork than I thought. Okay, he's Bartholomew.
Yeah, well, I mean, speaking of him being a huge dork, so he goes to hang out with his parents, like, right before the wedding, and his dad is his best man, because I guess he doesn't have any fucking friends.
Yeah, what happened to Frank?
But the thing that is nice is that like this is one of the reasons why a lot of people hate Flashpoint, and like myself included, is that Barry, which is very rare for superheroes, has a regular and like good relationship with his parents, where he like talks to them about like Iris's death at points, and like
Superman.
But Superman didn't have it at this point. He didn't have it at this point. This was before.
he didn't have parents until they rebooted him in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like they've always been dead at this point.
Yeah, it was because of like so technically
Continuity.
Technically, Superboy did have it, so there is some truth to what Dallas said. Superboy did have it.
Yeah.
But
Barry as an adult
Yeah.
still like talking to his parents for advice, and like that to me is like really rare even today.
yeah, and it's one of those annoying things in fiction. They always have to amp up everything. You can't just have a normal character. So everyone's parents have to be dead always. Never have this normal person, well adjusted, has a nice family life. They have to be orphaned.
Yeah, it's sort of like how Disney princesses can't have both a mom and a dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The story. Yeah.
Elsa, you fuck.
I said most, I thought. Maybe.
Mulan, you fuck.
Also, their parents are dead. Spoilers for the beginning of the movie. Or they're gone. They might be alive.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So his parents, Nora and Henry, are talking, and like this to me reads pretty true, like of where Nora's like, him and Iris were so perfect together. I don't know if like I'm ready to like accept this Fiona person as like a new person, and his dad's just like, now look, she's gone. It's taken Barry 4 years to get here. Don't ruin it. Don't mention Iris. Just let Barry, like, we have to trust him. And like people rush into relationships after something tragic like that, and like I feel like they're actually talking about like a real personal issue here, which is unexpected.
I should clarify. The reason why it feels weird to me, because it feels more again like the Silver Age. Like in one issue, Lois and Superman are getting married, and it feels like it's going to be undone by the end of the issue. And So it feels like Silver Age plot pacing, kind of.
But counterpoint to that is, it's not Superman and Lois Lane. This is a new love interest.
I
If
know,
it
but
was
like
Barry and
but
Barry had.
they introduced like when had that mermaid girlfriend and stuff like that. And
Yeah, but I mean, like, for them to introduce a new love interest when I think everyone expected Iris to come back from the dead,
Yeah.
I feel like, and having her stick around now it's been, I think, 2 or 3 years in comic time with her being a regular character, like, to me, that's like...
I guess that's what I
It's
guess
pretty bold.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I feel about it. This feels like like kind of like Game of Thrones. When you look at it, it's kind of an extended fantasy story. If you look at Ned as the heroic the father figure rather than the heroic lead, like his role seems a lot more expected than it might seem when you
Oh, I
first
see. Yeah,
This seems like an extended Silver Age story. Like when you look at it, when you read the whole entire trial of Barry Allen, it is exactly like a Silver Age story. It's just really stretched out.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. So then all this sort of emotional, like, real talk is totally squashed, where Barry is now, like, getting ready, he's putting on his bow tie, he's getting his hair done, and one of the Green Lantern's bosses, the Guardian of the Universe, shows up in the mirror, and he's just like, just wanted to let you know, you imprisoned Reverse Flash, but then there was a universal gravity beam or some bullshit, and he's back now. Just wanted to give you a heads
purple
up.
lightning bolt released him from all these threads in his time limbo.
Yeah,
Guess what, guys? It's immoral to kill him, but it's moral to send him to time hell.
Yeah. Or even if he did repent and change, he's
in
still
time
stuck here
hell.
forever. He's
Yeah.
stuck in time hell.
So Barry's like, oh, I left him stranded for eternity, but no longer he's escaped. The man who murdered my wife has escaped. And at this time, his parents come in and they're like, how are you doing? You ready? And they just see him crying in his bed.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just like, oh, he must be thinking about Iris. We'll give him a minute to himself. And then basically Barry's like, well, if Reverse Flash is out here and he's talking to the Guardian now, and his parents leave, they're not also talking to the Guardian, and he's like, I need to face him alone. This guy's like, he's my nemesis. I need to deal with it. And he gets in his costume and runs off to fight him.
When Ryan said that the Guardian didn't talk to Barry Allen's mom and dad, I was picturing like the Guardian be like, oh, I had to meet Mrs. Allen in the flesh, the most important person in the universe.
Yeah.
He should have known, right?
So then Barry runs off, and then they go in, and his tux is left on the bed, and they're like, oh no, where is he going? And they know he's the Flash, which is another cool thing, that he confided in them and told them that he was the Flash, and they're like, it must be really important for him to risk missing his wedding.
I feel like that's loyal to, or at least like the CW show had done that a lot, where pretty much like everyone knows Barry's the Flash.
Yeah. But, like, because Barry's so optimistic and trusting, like, he does bring in a lot more people than the average superhero.
Yeah.
Which, like, I think that's really cool. Like, that's why he has such a good relationship with Green Lantern and the Elongated Man and his parents. And
I just
Iris.
enjoy how many people know he's the Flash. It is very different from something like Superman, where it's like no one knew.
I like that because I always my hated thing is always that bullshit. Like this is the stuff I hated.
My secret identity.
Yeah, I gotta go to the ball, but Spider-Man's going to be at the fair tonight. Can't be both places at once.
Yeah.
So Barry's now reminiscing about something that happened last issue about how there was some like hitman or whatever that was strung up for Barry, like, hey, here, I saved you. And he was like, that must be the Reverse Flash just trolling me now that I know he's out. So I'm going to go back to that scene of the crime. And he's standing in front of a statue of Reverse Flash that's in the Flash Museum. And the statue starts playing a recording that's like, hey, Barry, fuck you. You finally figured it out, you dumb piece of shit. And so Barry destroys the statue, and he's like, no, I hate you. And he just keeps trolling him. He's like, how's single life, huh? Oh, I heard you have a new girlfriend. You got a big wedding, huh? You know what? Maybe I'll pay her a visit. You know, maybe we'll get together and we'll reminisce about all our hot times with Iris together. And like, I'm not exaggerating. He says these things. Yeah. He's a real shitty guy. Mm-hmm. So then we see at the wedding, all of Barry's friends start showing up. We have like some of his neighbors, some of his friends, some
Ralph
of his coworkers.
Dibny.
Ralph Dibny's there, the Elongated Man. You know, the same people that were at the funeral, but a bunch of new characters, like I said, like his neighbors and stuff.
It's funny how comics work where I wouldn't give one shit about Ralph Dibny without having read 52 and Identity Crisis. And I'm like, oh, good old Ralph.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, Sue's home with the flu. I'm so sorry she couldn't make it. But, like, this feels very domestic to me, and that's what I like about the way a lot of The Flash was during this time period, is, like, it's focused... They're trying to put the focus more on Barry than The Flash because they realized Barry was, like, pretty boring. And like after Iris's death, as weird as it sounds, they do a lot to make Barry like a more real character. And so we see like Fiona's getting ready and talking to her friends, and she's like, "I'm so happy." She talks about how Barry's like such a hunk, and like I don't know about that.
And his friend's like, "I thought she was ordinary. What the fuck?"
Yeah. And so Flash is now just looking everywhere for Reverse Flash, and he's running across the ocean and just looking everywhere. And there's lots of cuts of just like the people in the pews being like, "Where's Barry? Where's Barry?"
I love this because they're already like, they're like, "There's late." And it's like, this is too much for Barry. I know he's always late, but this is too much. If you're next issue, he's 30 minutes late. I'm like, if Barry's perpetually late, I feel like 30 minutes is like.
For your wedding?
But I don't know, at a wedding?
I know, but like, how late is Barry usually then? Like 5 minutes late? Like, oh, you lazy sack of shit. Like, how late is he usually then?
But 30 minutes, like, you have a lot of scheduled things you have to get through at a wedding.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like a perpetually tardy character. How late is he?
Beware Sly's future wife.
Yeah.
For when he's gonna show up.
I'm not perpetually.
I don't know. Sly's very punctual.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a perpetually tardy character. So Barry goes to Iris and his home that he had moved out of, and there's a trap that as soon as he steps in, it explodes because Reverse Flash is just such a piece of shit.
And they have a comedy scene where people are like, "We just bought this house. We're the new owners," and they walk in on the house exploding, and they're like, "Let's get out of here."
And then finally, Barry Allen meets up with Reverse Flash as Fiona is like realizing, as they finally tell her like, he's not here, we don't know where he is. And you get this like this page where it's cut in half by a lightning bolt, like diagonally, and you have Fiona crying while Barry's parents are like, "Don't worry, he'll be here, I have faith in him," while Barry is getting like choked by the Reverse Flash running behind him. And that ends the first issue of this arc.
So then issue 324 opens with a baby stroller running away from this nurse.
It's a cliche scene, the baby stroller going on the hill.
Yeah, and then a Flash rescues.
He looks so much like the Reverse Flash.
Okay, so is this because I was like, this art is just weird. Is it purposeful? Because first, like the only they don't show his face.
I think you're supposed to assume it's the Flash because of the yellow boots and red pants.
But they say, "Hey, Kid Flash is coming here." Like they announce it before they reveal his face. It feels like it's
I don't know.
I don't know. It just feels like the artist. It feels like
it could be done better. It's basically Kid Flash shows up, she rescues this baby stroller, and then he's like, "Oh, I gotta go to my uncle's wedding because I'm late."
But see, but Wally's 30 minutes late, and everyone's like, "Whatever." Oh, there you go.
No, Wally. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it would matter if just his nephew.
I'm fucking around. I'm fucking around.
Yeah.
So anyway, he shows up and he's like, "Oh, Ralph Dibney, where's my uncle?" And they're like, "He hasn't shown up either." And he's like, That's not like him to be late." And then for the rest of this issue, man, did I not enjoy it. Like, my eyes were glazing over just, like, reading this. Because this entire issue is Barry fighting with Professor Zoom, and Barry never talks this entire time. So all these word bubbles, you get, like, dozens per page. It's all Professor Zoom just shit-talking him.
I love that.
I like that.
Hey, like, I want banter. I want, like, at least, like, Barry to, like, talk back to him. Instead, it's just the whole time. It's like,
but
Professor
this just shows
Zoom.
how serious Barry is.
I feel like Barry being so mad that he's not. There's no longer like a superhero banter fight. Now he's going out like Zoom is still treating it like it is, but Barry's just going to fight him. He's just trying to kick his ass.
And also, he's doing such fucked up stuff. They're fighting in the Antarctic, and Zoom runs up a mountain and carves the ice so it looks like Iris. And he's like, hey, you remember what your wife looks like? And then he smashes it, and he's like, just like I killed your wife, am I right? I'm going to vibrate through her head. And then he causes an avalanche on it.
It's crazy
and
to me how much faster he must be than the Flash to, in the middle of a fight, have the time to make an ice sculpture or to write in the sand, "Your wife is dead," or whatever.
That's why I like this issue, because this whole issue is pretty much Eobard Thawne being a smoke piece of shit. So the whole time you're like, God, I hope fucking Barry snaps his fucking neck.
Yeah. And so then he causes a tidal wave. They end up grabbing onto a rocket and then like fighting in space for a little while.
Man,
then they
it's
crash
just
down.
so much reading for stuff I don't care about.
And then he writes in the ground, "Guess who's going to kill your wife again?"
And this is the first thing Barry says all issue is he yells, no, you won't, not again, as they approach the church.
And so Reverse Flash is running towards Fiona. She's now storming out because it's been like 2 hours or something. She was crying during the fight too. Like, as they're fighting, she's just like, he's not coming.
She's like it was a joke. She's making a joke on me. She's crying as she's walking out of the church. Reverse Flash is heading towards her, and he's about to put his hand in her head and drill a hole into it like he did to Iris.
And he yells again, "No, not again, not again."
Barry does as he snaps Red Flash's neck.
Yeah.
Which I feel like the arc could be a little more clear that.
It's more of a twist because he just grabs him, and then next page they say, they reveal, "I don't like the angle of that neck," and he's like, "Just as I feared, he's dead." Like it's more like a twist. Like
I think it would be more impactful. I agree with Daryl though if we see.
Yeah, like
him
you see the head
it.
bending in a way it shouldn't bend. I feel like that would be because when I was reading this, I was looking at it's like he grabbed him, and then I thought maybe he was like because of how blurry their waists are. I'm like maybe he's punching him in like the spine or something, and then he kind of just falls over, and the Flash looks surprised that he fell over as they're in the ground.
So I think the reason why they do this, I agree with you, Daryl, that it should have been that way, but I think part of the reason they do it is because the whole trial, the Flash arc, is all its issues and issues are based around what was his motivation, did he have to do it, and should he be guilty? Because like a lot of the argument is with his powers, he's so powerful, look at the things he does. He could have stopped him other ways, and they have Kid Flash testify as like a speedster expert, and like Wally even says like, Barry's so good at being the Flash, I don't think he had to kill him. I think he chose to kill him. And like things like that I think they intentionally obfuscate it here in the art so that you're then like, as the reader, also poring over the evidence tapes and everything. But I just think it's not as powerful as a story if we don't see it.
I also suspect it might be censorship because I know in Tales from the Crypt a lot of times stuff is said in narration that you don't see on page because they're afraid of censorship complaints. I mean, they're afraid of like people complaining about it. So they'll say like this character got cut in half, but it'll only be in narration. You'll never actually see the character cut in half. So I wonder if it's they don't
or
want to
silhouetted.
Yeah, they don't want to see a character next time.
Well, I can't believe there's a whole like arc after this about the trial because I'm like, in what world? I get what you're saying that in a lot of self-defense legal things in different places they'll say if you have an option to not kill, you should take that first. But it's like in the event where someone is literally plunging the knife at your wife's neck, and you grab them, and it's like you should have been good enough at your job at wrangling him to not snap his neck. It's like
it's a sign of the naive, not naive, but like the more. I guess naive, but like naive, the more every like Silver Age was like everything. The cops are great. Everything like now by modern context, if you see a cop like pull out a gun to stop a guy running at him with a knife, no one will second judge that cop. They'll be like, okay, whatever. Like by
or we'd say like we might complain about it as social justice warriors.
I know, but like
the criminal the justice system would probably side with the cop.
Exactly.
Would you if someone was running at him with a knife, you'd be like, well, you can't use a gun against a knife. No, you'd be like,
I know, but like that's this is like back when people thought people cared about that stuff. Like our justice system worked all the time. Now I think we know a little bit better in a lot of cases. So like this whole scenario would not happen where people are really questioning the moral character of this hero as he was saving somebody else and potentially accidentally murdering the guy who's trying to kill that person.
Also, one thing that I want to point out is in comic history and in story for the trial, they point out that a superhero has never murdered anyone before in the DC universe. And they said like this is an important, because a lot of times you'll see, especially cases that like become media cases or go up to the Supreme Court or anything, they're not always about this specific instance. They're about setting the precedent. And this is like when Marvel had characters like the Punisher and all this stuff, but this is the early 80s. DC didn't really have a lot of that edgier stuff yet. And having a high profile member of the Justice League kill somebody raises a lot of questions about their extrajudicial authority. Like who appointed, because Flash is not a cop. I mean, Barry Allen is a cop, but they don't know that. Flash is still just a guy that's doing this of his own accord. You know, like if someone ran at me with a knife and I shot them, I might get acquitted, but it would still go to trial. You know, like look at like the George Zimmerman case. Like he didn't even have a knife, you know, and that still went to trial and he was acquitted for it. And he used like the stand your ground self-defense argument that like these things go to trial. And having this,
like, in a lot of those cases, they're more like questionable. Like in this case, it is 100% everyone knows he was literally.
But they still go to trial. But they just get acquitted.
But like he's not a police officer, but like the mayor or somebody, like he has a museum in town. It's probably like a main tourist attraction. Like they're not gonna tear down the Flash Museum and just on this questionable case, like maybe I'm missing my cynical side showing, but like there's no way like they would have fucking gone after the Flash in real life. I feel like.
But I think that if a superhero like this that is a vigilante that if like this is like still in the 70s where people still had liberal ideals and not the Punisher. I mean, this is 83. This is Reagan.
Yeah, this is before we're transitioning towards that. But even comic writers are still pretty liberal because they were, living in New York and stuff for the most part. But like, I agree with you. But I feel like when I'm imagining this in the real world, this probably wouldn't happen.
I think that it's an interesting enough case to explore about when a super popular superhero kills for the first time.
I get the idea, like, yeah, a superhero is killing someone, but I can't. I don't know how the trial happens, but I'm like, I can't imagine anyone finding him guilty. Like, self-defense, it seems to be like one of those things that almost every legal system in the world understands, that if someone is trying to kill you.
But part of the point of what they're saying is because the average jury does not understand, like the main case that the prosecution is trying to point in the trial is they don't understand what it's like to be the Flash. They don't think, they make the case that he wasn't actually in, like no one was in as much danger as they thought, because that's why they have Wally West testify. And Wally says, I think he could have stopped him another way. And that's the only speedster.
Do they bring up that Professor Zoom is also a speedster? Because I feel Barry stopping him, like, he was fighting someone with his powers. I feel like the excessive force is...
Also, spoilers reveal that Abracadabra, a time shot from the future, brainwashed the jury to convict Barry.
Oh my god.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
But okay.
All right,
But
let's
it's
finish
not
funny,
this.
but Ryan's like building it up. I skimmed ahead.
It ends really, really dumb, but I'll get to that after we cover this one last issue. But this argument that we're having right now is why I think a trial would be necessary to address this. Because keep in mind, they don't just cuff him like in the 60s when like Batman was framed into killing someone and they immediately put him in jail forever and sentence him. Like, they don't just cuff him and sentence him. They give him a trial, and I think that is interesting.
That is the biggest subversion from the Silver Age in the long run, because it is treated like a real trial for the most part.
Yeah.
So this issue is largely just the fallout of the murder, manslaughter, self-defense, whatever. And everyone's like, oh, he's trying to get away from the media. He's running away with.
He's still dressed up as Flash, and he goes and sees Fiona, his bride to be, and he has to try and comfort her. And his parents are like, "Oh, it must be so difficult that he has to comfort her as Flash, but she doesn't know that he's the Flash, so she just has to hear like she's shitting all over Barry Allen, and he's the Flash."
Yeah, and the supervillains, all the Flash supervillains, get together and break into the morgue to steal Reverse Flash's corpse.
Captain Cold, the Trickster, Captain Boomerang.
So these are the rogues.
Yeah.
And the thing that I love about this is, first they break his body out and they give like this. I'm gonna go non-linear because this happens like in the background throughout the issue. They give him like a funeral speech and like they give him like a eulogy, and then they basically are like, just kidding, fuck you, and they do like the supervillain equivalent of piss on his grave and just like blow up his corpse, and they're like, no, fuck you, you're an asshole. I love that. You got killed by the Flash.
Yeah, they
you're
say
a piece
that
of shit.
We've all been defeated by the Flash, which is not that bad, but getting killed by him ruins our reputation, so fuck you.
Yeah, they do this a lot in modern comics where they have the funeral villains are like, we're human, we have a funeral for a friend, but these guys are like, no, fuck you, we're gonna piss on his fucking corpse.
And that's one of the only reasons I included this issue is because like we are gonna talk about the rogues later on, and I just like, this is a perfect example of them where they do all their like they break into the morgue, they steal the body, they do all these things just to be petty and assholes and be like, fuck you.
Yeah.
And then
Captain Boomerang, just the big thing about him is that he has a spaceship that's a boomerang.
Yes,
I'm like, this is the worst idea ever.
How does it fly? Whatever.
No, not just that. It's like, think how sick you're gonna be just in this spaceship.
They have inertial
Well, he doesn't
dampers.
spin, does it? Does it
They have
spin?
inertial dampers.
It has to. It's a boomerang.
It's a boomerang. Look at it. It's spinning a.
I'm fine. You know I'm fine with this because the new Star Trek has the same shit, and they say, "Oh, it's inertial dampeners or some bullshit." I'm like, fine.
Yeah,
whatever.
that is a thing in a lot of things with ships.
Yeah.
And then
It's just, why not have a regular?
Yeah, that's a bigger problem. Why not have a regular ship? What?
He's Captain Boomerang. He's not Captain Spaceship.
Yeah. Then he
So
goes
then
to
Flash gets arrested. Oh no, Flash Flash goes as Barry to his girlfriend, who's like completely broken.
Well, what he's doing, this touch that I really like.
I like this part too.
Yeah, is that he's running around and he just starts like saving people. It's like a stampeding elephant. He stops by using his arm to create wind tunnel and blow it over.
Yeah.
He saves a biker that gets into an accident. He saves a jet that's about to crash. And then Wally is running alongside him and it's like, hey, I noticed that since Professor Zoom has died, you've been like on a non-stop rescuing marathon because you're trying to cover for the fact that like you murdered someone. Like you're trying to outweigh it with the good that you can do.
He did good already by killing Professor Zoom.
They also one thing about the murder question, they're charging him manslaughter, by the way, not murder. So I find if you say murder, they charge him manslaughter.
They charge him with manslaughter, but again, I'm like,
So you don't think he should go to trial?
We should note too that Phil is sympathetic with Kira from Death Note, so just keep that in mind.
My thing is not that. My thing is I don't think he should go to trial. My thing is. Considering up how our justice system works nowadays, like how tied Barry is to the city, he's more tied to any other hero. It will look bad for everyone to have him go to full trial. Like
I am fine with thinking with the argument that it is justified and he deserved to die and that Barry didn't do anything wrong. I am not fine with the cops making that decision. He should go to trial. He should face a jury. Like.
Yeah,
I think that what they were saying is realistically, like, in a modern.
I should say I would like a modern, realistic take on this, where it's more about everyone wants to get him off, but he feels like he wants to go through the process because realistically, everyone would want to cover their asses because how tied they are to him. Like he's not just a hero. The museum is after him. He's working with the cops all the time. He's very tight. It's like Batman kills somebody while the police were working all this time. Like it's very it will make Commissioner Gordon look like a complete shit. Like
it's a very political move.
Yeah.
Like
and that's one thing. Like the trial, it's long and like I said, it's got a lot of fluff and like it probably would be great if it was half the length. But the reason why I still really enjoy that story is because it gives you there's a lot of counter arguments where there are people making the exact same arguments that you guys are making. Before it gets derailed by a bunch of comic book bullshit. But, like, it's... Especially for 1983, like, it is... That is just... You don't get stories with that much, like us arguing about the political merits of that is crazy that was in a story that early in DC.
Yeah, especially
Marvel, maybe, but not DC.
Especially Flash of all characters. This guy is trickster.
Because Flash was such a pure, untainted character. As everyone else, like as Batman got darker again, as Superman was more grounded after like Danny O'Neill relaunched him, after Green Lantern, Green Arrow, like put Green Lantern back in like looking through a political lens. Like Flash was still very much this like pure, optimistic, never do anything wrong character. And having this kind of nuanced look at it is to me like fascinating.
Yeah, I guess I can appreciate that. I think the reason I'm hung up on it is I'm like, I just can't imagine a world where you have someone like a serial killer breaks into your house
comes at you
with a gun.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
People, if they found out that like all you have to do is reveal that Eobard Thawne killed somebody, and everyone's like, "Oh, a speedster that's willing to murder." Okay, Barry Allen's.
And the fact that it wasn't that he's willing to murder. He had the gun.
Yeah.
Essentially, in this situation, a serial killer has the
and
gun.
And also all those disasters. Like he wrote, and all he has to do is say, Barry has to be like.
He had a heroin ring.
Yeah,
he was
exactly.
In charge of.
Okay, my question is, whose call is that to make? That Barry should be acquitted. If not a jury and a
judge.
Well,
my thing is not. You're not.
He should go to trial. He should go to trial.
Yeah. My thing is not you're wrong, Ryan. My thing is just how people are reacting. It
should be like right.
Yeah,
it should be like yes, he should go to trial because that's the way it should be. But like there should be, it's almost no question if a serial killer comes to your house and points a gun at your wife, and you shoot him, that people aren't like, well, couldn't you have shot him in the hands to disarm him? It's like,
and
no,
to be fair, Phil, people do that. People do question.
Yeah, but they're crazy. Yeah. Like that is a crazy.
No, but the thing is. We, especially now as we started as a society to talk a lot more about police accountability, you hear those arguments all the time of like use non-lethal force and de-escalation tactics and everything to prevent police from killing people. These are real things that are part of the regular conversation. And yes, there are clear-cut examples where lethal force was justified, and there's clear-cut examples where it was not justified. And then there's stuff in the middle, and the fact that no one can see how fast the Flash can go, to me, for the average person, would put this justifying a trial. I'm not saying justifying an acquittal, but I think it justifies going into and asking these kind of questions, because when you're like, why doesn't the cop, people say like, why doesn't the cop shoot him in the leg, or why don't they use tasers and everything? It is a lot easier for us to understand what it would be like to be a police officer than to be a speedster.
That's fair, and I do often, like, I'm saying this because I do think like the arguments like shoot him in the legs or whatever, like I think the de-escalation arguments work way better when it's an obvious imbalance of power, where someone is not armed or with a melee weapon and they get shot to death. You're like, okay, did you need to shoot? But like,
when I made an example wasn't like, oh, you guys like miles away. I mean, like, he's on top of you for knife stabbing into you, and you shoot him.
Right.
That's why.
Right.
But the question is also, who says that they're equal powers? The only word you have is the Flash saying he's just as fast.
That's why you
as
go to trial. But like, I'm cynical because we've seen so many cases don't go to trial in the real world.
Yeah.
I guess that's fair. That like, who knows how fast that he was about to kill him or whatever. But...
Only the guy charged with the crime.
Yeah.
Please, let's end this, please.
So anyway, Barry like pours into the work. He saves a bunch of people, and he's like, I'll never be, I'll always have this, like, I killed somebody, I have to live with that. And then the cops are reviewing the tapes, and they see like, oh, I think, this seems like he did this on purpose. We got to take him in. Barry visits Fiona, and she's like really broken up, and he has to sneak in because she's sedated. And he's like, don't worry, I'm here. And then he's like, I gotta go. And she's talking to the doctors, and she's like, Barry was here. And they're like, no, you're crazy. Yeah. And that kind of breaks her and gives her a nervous breakdown. And for the rest of the story, she's just hospitalized, and then she's never mentioned again.
Wow.
Wait, ever again?
They did her dirty.
Ever again. Yeah, pretty terrible.
Jesus.
Wow.
Because I thought Barry would at least return to her or something.
Yeah.
But I guess he dies after this, right?
Okay.
So yeah, it ends with him getting arrested, and I just want to briefly talk about.
Yeah, the issue ends with him getting arrested and being
just real quick. How do the cops have videotape of like when they're moving that fast?
The wedding photographer was there.
They explained that.
We saw him there. He had just arrived.
I think he's saying like they're going so fast, but theoretically, one frame should have. Like, well, I guess how would you see the like motions and stuff? I don't know.
I'm assuming that's bullshit because they'll need like 100 frames per second camera or something like that. But whatever, it's not.
It's a really nice goddamn camera.
It's like just imagine it's like how how Tony Stark changed the technology in Marvel Universe. Imagine fucking Batman created a super camera and this guy got it. It's super cheap now.
Yeah.
I just want to briefly mention, we talked about also nuance about accountability, about the ethics, about how do we judge powers. Yeah. The series ends with Barry. It turns out that the
So okay, hold on. Can I do this? So Barry goes to trial, and the beginning of the trial arc is very much that, in my opinion. It's been a while since I read it, but like I remember it being like a lot of arguments from both sides. They bring in expert witnesses of other speedsters like Wally, all this kind of stuff, and it is really back and forth. They decide that Barry has to unmask, but Gorilla Grodd beats him to a pulp, and he has to get plastic surgery so he looks like somebody else. It's pretty weird. Then No, I'm sorry. Some guy named Big Sur beats him to a pulp, and then Gorilla Plastic Surgeons change his face.
Don't give Gorilla Clock credit.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. And then in the 60s, there was this weird thing where Iris, you guys are gonna hate this so much, but Iris was an orphan from the future that came back here to live, and that was like an old 60s thing. And Carrie Bates brings it back to end this story where Iris, one of the jurors was like a 400-pound man, that it actually was Iris's mind put in his body because the
oh my god, I
misread
that.
Future.
Okay, I didn't know. Okay, so her soul was in his mind. Okay, that's.
Yeah, her soul was in his mind, so her parents from the future had brought her back to the future, like her soul, and then put her back in the jury to help acquit Barry as Abracadabra was brainwashing the rest of the jury.
Another future villain who got bored and was like, I'm going to be a villain.
Yeah, it's all really, really, really dumb, but the story ends with Iris getting back in her original body, and her and Barry retiring to the future together.
So happens on this shit, by the way, and the comments on this show are like, "What the fuck is this storytelling?"
What does he say about Fiona? Like, does he say anything about her afterwards?
No.
Like, that's just such a weird thing to be like, oh yeah, I was gonna marry someone else, but now that you're here, actually, that love was all a sham.
This happens a lot.
It's bad. It's not good.
Especially because I'm imagining for the Infinite Crisis, they wanted him to be back with Iris. Maybe to set up for Wally.
So I'm pretty sure that editorial told Carrie Bates halfway through his story that it has to end with Iris and Barry retiring to the future together.
And that's why that's why I compare it to a stretched out Silver Age story, because I can see a Superman, Lois dies in the first act, Superman married somebody else, but then it turns out Lois's mind was stuck in another body, and like that feels very. That's a
it's
very
really, really
story
dumb.
when you now, but like. When you stretch it out, it creates more nuance in between the scenes, just like Game of Thrones did by stretching out certain plot points, and you see.
But like I'm convinced that Carrie Bates wanted Fiona to be the new love interest, and that something else would have happened from after the trial. But DC needed Barry to end up with Iris in the future for Crisis on Infinite Earths to work the way it does. And like there's no doubt in my mind that that's not Carrie's idea, because it's so disjointed from the rest of the arc. It's so
and so weird to have the whole arc be like so long and then to end one issue.
Not only the whole arc, that's the last issue of Barry Allen's Sons of the Flash for 20 years.
You stretch out the trial so long, then the last issue ends like that. Like it feels like he was like keep circling in this flying formation, and then the last minute like, okay, end the story now. Okay, in one issue.
Yeah. It's really weird.
I hate
That's
it.
bad.
I hate it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's bad.
So
God.
yeah, it's really dumb. So that's the end of Barry Allen. So what did you guys think of Reverse Flash?
I liked it, honestly.
So I had watched, and by watch I mean I put on when I do stuff, quite a bit of the CW show, the first season, like a good like 15 or 16 episodes, and I feel like Eobard Thawne there is way more interesting.
Yes,
Whereas like here I was
I
just
do
reading it, I was like, yeah, what? It's just like I guess he's more of an asshole than other guys, but it's so
Flash in the show isn't really this Flash. I mean, the Reverse Flash in that show, he starts out as this Flash, and then he's forced to become something else. Out of necessity, and he becomes more interesting.
But I'm still saying at least in comparison, because they're both called the same guy.
I know, but I'm saying like theoretically, the Flash in the show starts out as this Flash, as this Reverse Flash. Like it's only because of the events in the show that he becomes a more interesting character.
Yeah.
But I Reverse Flash is whatever for me. I'm like, I found the Rogues Gallery interesting, and it was giving me thoughts of like Batman, where I feel like they're very colorful and they seem like fairly distinct. Maybe it's because I've just heard Captain Boomerang's name so many times, and I've like read about him, and I saw him in Suicide Squad, that now I'm like, yeah, he's a very distinct, Rogues Gallery Flash villain. But I'm like,
I'm
like,
really curious
fun.
what you guys think of the Rogues as we go forward.
They're fun, and I kind of see what you mean by that. The campiness can be fun, because it's like.
Yeah.
Well, how serious was Batman at this time?
At this point, he was. I mean, I think we're like
He's been transitioning
3 years away from Frank Miller's Year One.
Okay, so then his Rogues Gallery would still be fun like this.
No,
too.
they actually had that's the interesting thing about Batman at this time. They actually have stories about how because Joker was killing people around this time, and they'll have characters like the Riddler.
Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams had darkened up Batman.
And they'll have characters like the Riddler who's still campy, being like, "What's everyone killing people for? Like, what we used to just rob ice cream shops and stuff, and now everyone's killing people." Like, they'll actually they have like stuff like that going on at that time.
Because I feel like the Flash is like his villains are a good contrast to like Batman's, where it's like
That's why I really like them.
you go into Batman for like the dark and the grittiness and the twisted aspect of it, where it's like these guys are just kind of like Captain Cold just really likes his ice gun and his winter coat.
Yeah. What about you, Phil?
I liked him. I liked how he was such an asshole.
Yes.
But I was like, again, you've heard me say it a million times. I'm like, I'm very glad he died.
Yeah. But don't you think that there's something interesting about because you've said that so many times. This is the first time they've actually done it.
Yeah, I'm like, that's why I was shocked that the people were questioning it. I'm like, this is obviously a good thing. Like, I can't imagine someone being like, super fast guy killing people gets killed. We have to. I was like,
I could see how like momentous it is and how big it is. That because for me, I was looking at like, yeah, it makes sense. He was about to kill your wife. He killed your previous wife. He's about to kill your future wife right now. Of course, you'd stop him by killing him. But then it's like. You think about it like in context of everything, where it's like superheroes don't kill. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess.
Even like 20 years later, remember people got butthurt that Wonder Woman killed Max Lord. It's like
which I also thought was like, God.
That's one thing. Like people in DC Universe still act like it's the Silver Age. Like, Batman should never kill.
It's cool to see the original. Like, I can't believe this person killed this other person. It sucks that it had to be done they obviously did it to a character that was going to retire, that they were going to cut his run. So it's like, why not make it more interesting?
Yeah.
But it's like, it's neat seeing it like the first time it happened.
It is weird because Barry goes on to become like a legend. It's funny that he's a convicted criminal technically.
Yeah. But it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Oh, do you guys have any final thoughts?
I would not read more of this.
Okay. Well, it's basically over, so that's fine. So yeah, and next episode's going to be a Mark Waid episode, Daryl.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah.
Now I'm on board.
Yeah. So yeah, next episode we're going to be doing weekly Flash episodes for the month, which is very exciting for me. We're going to be covering Mark Waid's Return of Barry Allen next episode.
Yeah, I have no
very
idea where it
exciting
goes from here, what it's going to be like.
Yeah, I'm very.
I
very
assume
excited.
Professor Zoom's going to come back and be an asshole more. I don't know if we'll get more depth from him or not.
So we will find out next week. But I do just want to briefly mention that if you're in the Flying Machine Facebook group, you will have seen the announcement that the network is coming to a close. And, I would just go there if you want to read more about it. Or if, you have any questions or anything, you could join our Facebook group or our Discord, and I'll gladly talk to anybody about it. And the Patreon will still be active for the month. But if you have anything you want to download real quick. But I think we are going to throw some stuff on the feed, right, Sly?
Yes. Do we want to do that? We're going to do that later, or we're going to do it now?
Yeah. No, we're going to do it later on. But, so don't rush. You don't have to rush to download everything. If you're a patron, that stuff will be available, on this feed eventually.
And for all you non-patrons that never supported us, only by listening, not throwing us money, you're going to get all these cool episodes that we did of like really goofy comics and Heroes in Crisis.
Even though you don't deserve it because you never supported us
Yeah.
financially.
But I am immensely grateful for the people that did support the network and the Patreon over the last couple of years, because we were able to do some really cool stuff with that. We ran some ads that some people listening might be the reason why they found us, and we were able to pay for the hosting and everything, and that's like super cool, because it's a lot nicer to do creative projects when they're not costing you money.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, I am super grateful for that. And it also makes it a little easier and more justified when we have more ambitious things, like when we did 52, or when we went weekly for this, or like all the Bleach stuff, that like it shows that people like kind of give a shit a little, and that's really cool, and lets us feel like it's worth it to push some more ambitious projects. So thank you so much for listening to Divisive Issues. I've been pissing on the Reverse Flash's grave.
I've been zapping people at a masquerade party.
I've been salivating outside Ryan's window.
And I've been the Flash's wife from the future in a fat man's body trying to acquit him on manslaughter charges.
Stay in continuity.